Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my wife's sister tried to kiss me and now my wife is spiraling. Plus final update. My wife's sister made a pass at me at a recent family gathering and I have no idea what to do. For context, I think my wife, Jenna, is absolutely gorgeous, but she has some really negative body image issues. This is in large part because of her sister, Mary, who is very conventionally attractive as opposed to Jenna's more unconventional, but in my opinion, striking beauty. Mary was a successful model until a couple of years ago, and now she works in the fashion industry. In our early days of dating, when I would tell Jenna she's beautiful, she would always say, "Just wait until you see my sister." When I did finally meet her family, she would randomly press me for weeks to talk about her sister, whether I thought she was more attractive than her, etc. I always told her the truth, that I think Mary is attractive in a boring way, and that I think my wife is much more beautiful and interesting to look at. She wouldn't let it go until I confronted her about how uncomfortable it made me, and I asked her what was going on. This is when she told me that she always had a chip on her shoulder about her looks because of being compared with her sister growing up. They fell into the classic smart one, pretty one dynamic their whole lives. She also said Mary had a habit of being flirty with all of her exes and warned me that it would happen to me eventually. She then started sobbing and begging me to not cheat on her with her sister, to which I forcefully said I would never cheat on her with anyone, let alone her sister. I've been crazy about my wife since day one, and there's literally no woman on earth who could come close to her. I honestly didn't believe her about the flirting at first. I assumed it was just an extension of her insecurity, but I was wrong. Whenever we get together with my wife's family, Mary always finds ways to make little comments about me. It's super uncomfortable for everyone, especially my wife, and I've called her out on this before. She'll cool it for a while, but eventually starts doing it again. It's been 6 years of this, and every time it happens, my wife is upset for days, and I have to do a lot of reassuring. On to the current problem. A few days ago, we were at my mother-in-law's birthday party, and Mary asked me to help her grab some things from the garage. As soon as we walked into the garage, she turned and started trying to kiss me. I immediately pushed her off and asked her what the heck she was doing. She started giggling and saying she was just doing what we both have been thinking and kept insisting, "You know you want to." I told her she was out of her mind and I ran out of there. I went straight to my wife and told her we were leaving. The whole ride home, she was asking me what was wrong. I wasn't sure whether to tell her because I knew how much it was going to hurt her, but I also thought Mary would probably try to spin it as me making a move on her. So I knew I had to just say it. I told her everything, and she cried the whole way home. For the last several days, Mary has been calling and texting my wife, doing exactly what I thought she would do. Even telling my wife that I said she, Mary, was the hottest girl I've ever seen, which I had to assure my wife a million times that I did not say that, and I never would, even though she believes my account of the situation. She's been a complete wreck the last several days. She's hardly eating, she pulls away from my touch when I try to hug her or just hold her. She says that she feels hideous and disgusting, and I don't know what to do. This is the lowest that I've ever seen her, and it hurts to see how much she's hurting. I have no idea what to do to help her heal from this. Reddit, what should I do? All family gatherings that include Mary must now be non-attendable. Your wife knows what an awful person her sister is, and hopefully the rest of the family does too. To be honest, your wife's sister is evil. You have reassured your wife of your love and faithfulness. Your wife is incredibly insecure about herself, so obviously a professional may be in order for her and for you too. You love your wife, so stand by her and be there to support her. OP. My in-laws definitely enable her behavior. She's the golden child. They brag about her constantly, even though my wife is a neuroscientist. Their mom was a pageant queen, and she was their dad's much younger trophy wife. Honestly, we may have to go no contact with all of them. Update. Several people have asked how my wife's family feels about all of this, and I explained in a comment that her parents are toxic and treat Mary as the golden child. Even though my wife is a neuroscientist, amazingly talented musician, speaks 3 languages fluently and another 2 conversationally. My wife and her family are seriously the only people who don't seem to understand how exceptional she is. I remember meeting one of my wife's family friends and talking to them about her research, and they said, "Oh wow, her parents just told us that she works at a university." Whereas my parents literally introduce her as the family genius to everyone. It makes me so angry to think about how her family has stolen her shine her whole life. She's literally a Renaissance woman, but all they care about is looks and money. Some people asked me why I would ever put myself in a situation alone with Mary given everything she's done. I have no good answers for that, other than I never thought she would actually try to do anything like this. That possibility just didn't even exist in my head. I realize now that I should have seen this would happen eventually, and that I should have been less concerned with keeping the peace and more concerned with shutting Mary's crap down before it escalated to this point. Hindsight is 20/20. Anyway, on to the update. The night I posted, I told my wife that if she wanted to try to repair her relationship with her sister, I would respect that, but that I don't feel comfortable with being around her for the foreseeable future. I said Mary has obviously been deeply jealous of my wife her whole life because she is a hollow, ugly person whose entire value has an expiration date, while my wife actually has substance. I said that I think her whole family is toxic and has done nothing but put her down her entire life, but that only she can decide where she wants them in her life or not. I also told my wife that while I don't blame her for her emotional reaction, her insecurity is something that she needs to work on for our relationship to be healthy. What Mary did was wrong, and she's been acting this way for years, but I have consistently put aside my own feelings about this problem because of how it affects her, and that has prevented me from getting the support that I need too. I told her that her reaction only serves to punish herself and me for her sister's behavior, and there's no reason to give her that kind of power. I also told her something that a commenter said that really resonated with me. The only people who have ever considered her second best are her and her family. Everyone else sees her for who she really is. She was crying the whole time and agreed that she needed to go to therapy to work on her insecurity. We were able to find a therapist who specializes in body image and self-esteem issues to work with her individually, and we're looking for a couples therapist too. My wife sent a message to her parents and sister that explained exactly what happened and told them she would reach out to them if she ever feels ready to repair their relationship. We blocked all of them everywhere, but Mary has of course been spamming my family and our friends with nonsense that thankfully nobody believes. My wife is still down in the dumps, but I can see that things are getting a little better. She's eating and sleeping more, and she's cuddling with me in the mornings again, which is nice. Now I'm planning a surprise getaway for us this weekend. We're going to one of our favorite places, and I'm going to wine and dine her and try to make her feel like the queen that she is. I want to thank you all for your help. You really helped me understand this. Y'all are the best. Update. My wife loved the getaway weekend. We had a blast, and by the end of it, she said she felt like herself again. For a few days after we got back, things were really quiet, so we were hopeful that Mary had finally given up, but I felt uneasy about it. Many of you warned me that Mary would try to interfere with my work, and while I initially dismissed it, I figured I would reach out to my boss just in case. I've been working at the same company for almost 10 years, and she's heard me vent about Mary, so I didn't have to explain too much. My boss just reassured me that she knows my real character and would let me know if Mary tried anything. As you predicted, Mary did try to contact my boss a couple of days later, and the following is a recounting of what my boss told me. Apparently, Mary said that I needed to be fired because I was a creep and everything that happened was my fault. My boss said that was a very serious accusation to make and asked Mary to explain what proof she had. Mary claimed there was a video camera footage of the whole incident, and my boss asked her to send the video. Then Mary got flustered and said the police had it, so my boss asked her to send over a copy of the police report. Then Mary said it had a lot of private information in it, so my boss asked her to redact the private info and send it over. Then Mary said she didn't feel comfortable with that, and my boss told her that she could not take action against an employee based on word of mouth from a stranger. Then Mary shouted at her about victim blaming and hung up. Unfortunately, that was not the end of it. Last Wednesday, Mary somehow sent an email from my personal email account with a gross picture, not me, to the entire office. My best guess is that I must have left my email logged in on one of my in-laws' devices. She's definitely not smart enough to actually hack me. At this point, it was clear we had to escalate things legally. I really wanted to avoid it, but she forced my hand. My wife and I have a lawyer friend who helped us draft a cease and desist letter outlining her continued harassment and the material and emotional damage this is causing us. My wife then sent a message to Mary and my in-laws with a copy of the letter and made it very clear that we would pursue criminal and/or civil proceedings if her harassment continued. My wife's mom then called her crying and begged her to just let it go and leave Mary alone. My wife calmly explained that Mary is the only person responsible for this whole situation and that their parents have always enabled her awful behavior. She also said something she later regretted, but I think was pretty mean. Mary is going to stick you two in a nursing home and steal your money the minute she has the chance, and you deserve it. After the way her mom reacted, my wife is firmly settled on cutting them off completely. This happened on Friday, and on Sunday, Mary's best frenemy, Anne, sent my brother a message on Facebook to say Mary is going to leave us alone and to please not sue her. I told my brother not to respond, then just sat and enjoyed the idea that Mary was out there somewhere freaking out about the potential of having to actually face the consequences of her actions. It must be such a strange feeling for her. Since then, we haven't heard a peep from the grapevine. It feels like things are finally starting to go back to normal. My wife is starting therapy next week, and we'll be starting couples therapy in a month or two. She wants to do some work on herself first. She's also taking a short leave from work to rest and recharge. I'm so proud of her for standing up for herself with her family and finally putting her mental health and well-being first. Final update. Mary and my in-laws have pretty much left us alone. My mother-in-law still tries to contact my wife every now and then, but she's made it clear to her family that if the first words out of their mouths aren't, "I'm sorry," she isn't interested in a conversation. As you can see, the past 6 months have made my wife learn to stand up for herself. She has done some amazing work in therapy, and her confidence is growing all the time. It's not just with her family. She's more comfortable asserting herself at work, with strangers, with friends, etc. She's even stopped putting up with some of my crap. To be fair, that crap is stuff like me leaving my socks everywhere around the house, but I'm seriously proud of her for telling me to cut it out. I'm becoming a more responsible and supportive partner because she's able to communicate her needs and expectations without feeling guilty about it, and I'm able to communicate things to her without intense emotions fully eclipsing the conversation. I didn't mention this in my earlier posts, but my wife does struggle with rejection sensitivity even outside of her family. Often, if I brought up something that I felt needed to change, her emotional reaction to feeling like she did something wrong would be really intense, and instead of dealing with the problem, it would become about regulating her emotions. Now my wife has really good coping tools that allow her to talk about the problem without thinking she is the problem. And the biggest update? She's pregnant. We have a baby girl due in February. I'm so excited. We're going to love her so much and teach her that she is more than her beauty. She's going to have happy parents who love each other and work through issues as a team. The toxic cycle will be broken. Jenna's family doesn't know, and she's not sure if or when she'll tell them. But if she does, there are going to be strong boundaries in place for how they can be a part of our daughter's life. And it'll start with family therapy. For now, she has one set of grandparents that will go to the end of the earth for her, and that's more than enough. My family has been absolutely incredible in their support, and they are so excited for us. Things are looking better than they ever have before. Am I the jerk for divorcing my pregnant wife because she looked into my phone? My wife started jokingly making snide comments that I was having an affair. I thought she was teasing me, so I mostly ignored her or laughed with her. I didn't know she was actually serious. Then she was getting more irritated and arguments increased. In one argument, I asked her what her problem was, and she told me that I'm cheating. She started telling me all the time I was late from work, or how I was staring at a woman in the park, etc. I tried to explain everything and resolve her doubts. I even offered her therapy to clear her doubts. Then she started demanding to see my cell phone. I was like, nope, I don't have to do it. I never asked to see her phone, by the way. She told me if I have nothing to hide, I should do it. I told her she should just trust me, and I should not have to give proof of my honesty to her. But she would not let it go, so I unlocked it and told her, if she looks into my phone, we are done. She checked my phone, and I just went numb. Of course, she didn't find anything. I never cheated, and I don't plan to ever cheat. I told her I will move out, and we can figure out the rest. She freaked out and tried to apologize, but there is no going back. Now she's blaming it on pregnancy hormones, saying she was having dreams that I was cheating. I understand that, but she should have trusted me. I don't have to provide proof. It should be implicit, otherwise, why marry me? If she was having bad thoughts, we could have just talked it out, gone to therapy. She should not have put me in this position. It's very insulting that my own wife needs proof of my fidelity. That she thinks that I'm some kind of a person who would cheat on his wife, pregnant wife on top of that. She called her parents and they called mine, and they're all trying to make me forgive her. I've made up my mind. She crossed the line. It's over. I just feel sad. I had planned a lot of things. I had spent countless hours baby-proofing my house. I just wanted a happy family for myself, and it's all gone. Now I have to figure out how to be a single parent. My phone is buzzing all day. I've stopped replying to texts and receiving calls. I do think I have a right to be trusted in my own marriage without having to give proof every step of the way. Edit. I largely work from home. I did not spend lots of time away from her. I have to go to work 2 days a week. Notice how it's my house. I bought the house we live in before I met my wife, but it's currently our home. Yeah, this guy is looking to get out. When you tell your kid, Mommy and Daddy got divorced because she looked at my phone, do you think that will sound like a reasonable reason as to why you are not an everyday aspect of this kid's life? Dude here who had a pregnant wife recently. The hormones are real. It's not something we're capable of understanding the full extent of, but they're very real and very per person. My wife thought I was cheating too, even though she always knew I had zero time to. A female client who was very bubbly sent a few texts, and it worsened her suspicion. When they gain the weight, they feel more insecure and it compounds it. From dude to dude, you're the jerk. But chalk it up to ignorance and being a dumb, naive dude who, thankfully, won't ever understand what it's like to have your body create chemicals that alter every part of your body, brain included. Well, I knew a woman who, every time she was pregnant, became super suspicious and antagonistic towards her husband. She came and stayed with us for a couple of weeks. She seemed rational and lucid, but after every pregnancy, she went back to her normal self. She would just go crazy from hormones. I'm not minimizing the hurt you feel, but she literally may not be in her right mind, and so some grace might be in order. Not the jerk. You have every right to divorce her over this. If the man was the one looking through his wife's phone, everyone would be telling her that he's too jealous, insecure, and controlling, and she needs to divorce him. It's not okay for her to do this, no matter how much people want to justify it. You never have to stay with someone who doesn't trust you and violates your privacy like this, pregnant or not. Leave her, and hopefully she will learn to respect her future partner's privacy and stop with the massive red flags. This isn't the 50s anymore, and divorce exists for reasons exactly like this. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy ever asked to see my phone, I'd be like, sure, here you go. And when you're done, check out those pictures of the spider that I took this morning.
My recently engaged friend implied that I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend doesn't actually want to get married. My friend, Elise, 29 female, is engaged to Rick, who's 32, and I, 29 female, am dating Luke, who's 31 male. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2, and I've been with Luke for 3 years. Fake names. So Elise and Rick had their engagement party Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not gonna lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me though, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her, like how it happened. She told me on their first date, she told him that he had a deadline. I asked what she meant, and she said that she told Rick she wasn't going to wait around 2, 3, 4, or 5 years for a man, any man, not him in particular, to marry her. She said she wants kids with the right guy, but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have the house, and now they're getting married. Another one of her friends, don't know her age, but I'll call her Heidi, said she was shocked it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, well, it wasn't an ultimatum, it was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I'll be moving on, period. I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said Luke probably isn't the right one, if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last, and it doesn't mean someone is the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love and knew life wouldn't be easy, but she's prepared to make it work. She also said she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine, so long as your partner feels the same, but that marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who so clearly didn't have the same values as her. That's when Heidi asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem, just stating a fact. Then Heidi asked how long I had been with Luke. I said 3 years, and she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes, and when she asked what about Luke, I just excused myself to the restroom. Not much else happened at the party, but when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant, and he said, verbatim, only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right. So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course. And I asked, then why aren't we engaged? We've been together longer than they have. He said he wasn't ready yet, and our relationship was fine the way it was. I asked how long did he have to wait to know, and he shrugged and said, "Does it matter? We're together, and that's what's important." The conversation paused for a minute, and then Luke asked me to not be like Elise. He said that he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way. He's good friends with Rick. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at rings. He said I could, but to not get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready, and he said even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. I never asked her how much it was, but center diamond is 2 carats, and the rest of the band is covered in diamonds. I remember she was asked once how much it was. She wouldn't answer, but said that Rick bought a ring he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved money to purchase it debt-free. I didn't mention that to Luke, but her telling me that came back when Luke said he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. Only $1,500 on a ring? Is that not a lot of money to you? I'm not really sure why, but the conversation with Luke and Elise has made me very sad. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications, but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke based on our conversation Sunday. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it's all I can think about. Did Elise go about it the right way? Is Luke wasting my time? I don't know. Both of those conversations Sunday have me feeling like something is off. Update. Elise and Rick will have been together 3.5 years by the time they get married. I also think I gave the wrong impression of their relationship. Elise didn't demand a proposal from Rick, and she was surprised when it came. They honestly sound like they just had a whirlwind of romance. She also didn't say she had to be married by the end of 2 years, but that you should know if you want to marry her by the end of 2 years and be ready to be engaged so long as financially, work-wise, and in personal life everything's okay. They were together for a year and a couple months before he proposed. He did not propose at 6 months. He told Luke he knew she was the one at 6 months and started looking for rings then, but they got engaged later than that. Also, I don't care how much Elise's ring costs or how big it is. I didn't include that part because I was being petty. I was annoyed because Luke basically told me I don't get his say in what I'd be wearing. He developed the budget on his own without talking to me about it, and he knows next to nothing about jewelry and has never even asked me what I like. I always thought he'd do what Rick and other mutual friends did, which is look together, develop the budget together, and then pick what he thinks I would like. Rick didn't have the money for Elise's ring, his own words, so he made a financially sound decision to save up for a ring he knew she'd like but wouldn't break their bank either. I figured Luke was going to do the same thing, but apparently he had no intentions of doing so. Lastly, someone mentioned that Rick doesn't have as much going on as Luke does, which isn't true. I don't know what Rick actually does, but he works for a major company in the financial department. He's not an accountant, but he basically supervises all the money coming and going, sort of like a treasurer. Elise is a school guidance counselor, so both are very educated. No kids outside of their relationship. They're doing okay. Anyway, with me and Luke, he is very much go with the flow, more than I thought actually. The reason I didn't reply to my first thread is because I decided to talk to Luke first. Long story short, we broke up. Several comments said I needed to communicate what I wanted clearly to Luke, so I took an hour to write out what I really wanted in the next couple of years and then told Luke the night I posted the first thread. I told him that after 3 years, we should be seriously considering the next step. I told him I wanted kids, and with my age, I'm scared of health problems and complications, especially with lockdown overtaking the hospitals around us. I told him that before we buy a house, we were looking, that I want at least to be engaged like Rick and Elise were. That's not a comparison per se, but I reflected on this, and I think buying a house with a boyfriend who can't tell me when he wants to be engaged isn't very smart. Elise and Rick were engaged when they bought their house, so were several of our married friends, and I realized that's the minimum stage in a relationship I want to be in before purchasing a home. Luke's reaction was not pleasant. He told me he felt like I was trapping him in a corner and demanding a ring when I wasn't. I told him I wanted a plan and to see if we were on the same page, but I wasn't expecting a ring tomorrow or anything, just over the next year or so. He told me he'll propose when he's ready, and me bringing it up over and over again is making him not want to do it because he thinks I just want a ring. But I don't. I want a family. But I don't want to be one of those women who has a kid with a man who doesn't actually want the same things I do. I told him that he doesn't seem like he wants to get married, and that's when he said it. Luke told me he wants to get married, but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me particularly. When I asked why, He said he doesn't think I have enough ambition. Luke wants to get a promotion at his job. He works in marketing. He's going to school for his master's, and he's into self-improvement, like going to the gym and eating healthier and mental health books. He said he felt I just wanted a marriage and kids, and then I would be a stay-at-home mom, which he doesn't want me to do. He wants me to work, but I work as a secretary for psychology service. Luke makes almost 3 times as much as I do, and I don't want to go back to school. I hated it the first time, and I can't afford to do it again, even if I wanted to. Plus, I love my job. Great pay, great benefits, and my bosses and coworkers are really cool. But he told me that was an excuse, and he doesn't want to be tied to someone who is, as he said, okay with just being okay, and that he wants more than that out of life. I was angry because I feel like I've asked this of him before, and he always said he wants to marry me. I did tell him before I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom if financially we could afford it, and I guess he didn't want me to. So I told him I was done with the conversation, and he's been staying at a friend's house. I messaged him a couple of times to try and talk to him since, but he only responds saying he thinks we're on different pages and the relationship needs to be done so we can find what we want. I'm really sad and upset and feel like I wasted my time and that Elise was right. Luke took our relationship status off of Facebook and a ton of people have been asking what happened. His responses to my text messages also just seem so cold. From what I've heard from mutual friends, he sounds like he's doing okay and went out Friday night, New Year's Eve, with some of his friends to a bar. No, I have not talked to Elise, though she did reach out, but that's what happened. I was the first one to get married out of my friends and my husband's friends. We hadn't been together very long relative to our friends' relationships. Soon after our wedding, half of them were engaged, half were broken up. I think weddings can really make people think about their lives and their futures and see what it is they really want instead of just floating along and not discussing things. One of my biggest regrets is staying with someone I assumed would eventually catch up with me on marriage. The fact that she knew her boyfriend was not going to react well to that and would break up, but thought her friend was wrong to voice what she wanted was sad. And what her ex said about her? Oof. He should have broken up with her before. Also, I think her friend was pretty smart for saying exactly what she expected on her first date. This is a good way to find out if the person you're looking to date wants the same things as you, and she was right. Hope OP learns that she can ask for a timeline when it comes to relationships. OP sounds absolutely unbearable. I know it paints a picture that she is the victim of him not knowing what he wants, but it sounds like he was just fine and just waiting for the right moment, exploring the relationship and building his life, while she sat and pined after a ring, and to be provided for while she stayed at home and did nothing. They obviously have different values at the point of confrontation, but that isn't on him to forecast where things will go. I don't know, my partner and I have an atypical dynamic, so maybe I just don't get the whining because boyfriend didn't do exactly what the friends do, so therefore he's bad and the relationship is bad, and now it's time to prod him into making a decision when in 3 years an explicit description, OP knows he likes to let his heart lead and not be given ultimatums. Mess around and find out. Surprised at everyone blaming the guy here. Sounds to me that they never had the conversation, but because the guy doesn't want marriage and the girl does, that he's automatically the jerk? As for $1,500, that should be more than ample for any ring. If my wife was looking at rings worth that much, it would be a red flag to me. Hers cost around $400. There's nothing wrong with wanting different things. Doesn't make the guy the one in the wrong then. Sounds to me he thought all was sweet and got blindsided. This is something that should have been talked about years ago to make sure both were on the same page. I'm a big believer of the 2-year rule. If you can't decide by that time if you want to be with someone, then you're wasting your years. I hear about relationships that last 5, 7, 10 years only to break up. Then you have 2 people in their late 30s or early 40s when the best years have passed, and especially a woman's most fertile years. Sure, there's no way of knowing if a marriage will last, but at least you tried it. You didn't stay trapped in a relationship for the better part of your adult life. I just hope she isn't angry with Elise. She opened her eyes. Poor OP. I spent 3 years with a guy who made me believe he would propose at some point and never did. Eventually we broke up because he realized he didn't want kids at all. But it wasn't too long after I found someone who was ridiculously compatible with me and who wanted the exact same things and had the same values as me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex-boyfriend? Please let us know.
We all have our ideal lives that we want, and sometimes it doesn't align with the person we're dating. It's okay to call it quits and find someone who wants the same things that you do.
Especially when it's going to save your future self a fortune by preventing an unnecessary divorce. My Karen sister volunteers me to babysit my neighbor's kids. I, 22 female, have a sister who's 26 who's going away this weekend with her husband who's 40 for a little getaway, which will be their first time since having their son, who's 1. So my sister came over to visit today and she brought my nephew. She was going to be here for about 2 hours or so, and my sister saw my next door neighbors. My sister spoke to my neighbor and said that she and her husband are going away for the weekend, so my nephew is going to be staying here with me for the weekend, and it's his first time without his parents. My neighbor, who has 3 kids and a husband herself, mentioned she's also going away this weekend as she's going to see a friend and she's looking for a babysitter also. My sister actually told my neighbor that her kids could come stay next door with me since I'm already babysitting my nephew. Here's the thing, my neighbor's husband will be home and he has the weekend off and they're his kids. When I found out my sister said the neighbor's kids were coming over, I said they were not. I only agreed to babysit my nephew. My sister thinks I'm being harsh and selfish, and she thinks because I'm child-free, that's why I'm being so rude about not wanting to babysit my next-door neighbor's kids. However, if next door asked me, it would still be a no, because the dad will be home and he can watch them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The nerve of your sister. I would have told her to go tell the neighbor the answer is no immediately, or I would hand her kid back to her and not ever offer to babysit again. Not the jerk. It sounds like their dad will be home, he needs to parent his own kids. She volunteered you without consulting you. There's a huge difference between just a 1-year-old and 4 kids total. And if your sister is that pressed for someone to watch your neighbor's kids, she can do it for them when she gets back in town. My parents are kicking me, 18 male, out. My stepdad claims I've done nothing with my life and I have no direction. My parents divorced at an early age. My stepdad was strict, but he was a good father. I'm the oldest. Due to lockdown, I didn't go to college this year. I skipped it, and rightfully so, as I have health issues. I'm taking classes online. I don't work and haven't for at least 2 weeks. I left my job at GameStop after they stopped giving me hours and they weren't promoting me. My stepdad came in while I was finishing up some coursework. He told me I had 2 weeks to get out or he was forcing me out. I asked him why, and he says I have no direction, no goal. I'm doing nothing with my life. I'm 18. You can't seriously expect me to figure my life out. But he disagrees and claims, yes, I should have a good idea what I want. He says that a parent's job is done after I turn 18. All I do is play video games. I don't have girls over, no friends. We're in a lockdown. I only go out to work. Buzz off. I'm wasting away inside when I should be doing more. I told him I was looking for a better full-time job that had a good career path, and I was taking online classes. I even offered to pay rent. He said no. From his point of view, I'm wasting away, and he won't allow me to become a loser. Adversity brings innovation and strength, and life will be hard, but he knows that I will look back and thank him one day. I don't know what else to do. I feel like he thinks I'm worthless. I spent a lot of time inside last year for good reasons. We're in a lockdown. I don't want anything to happen to me. Am I being unreasonable? My dad says yes. Yes, I am. I just don't know what to do. This isn't really just him. My mom mostly goes along with what he says, but I don't know. How can I convince her to convince him to let me stay? Or is my dad justified? Am I a loser for not having any plans past 18? Your parents have zero obligation to support you. What, so I'm just supposed to dump them and hope for the best at 18? I won't take care of you when you're old by that logic. You failed to consider them and just presumed that you could stay there indefinitely without even asking them. Then you didn't go to college. Then you quit your job. Speaking as a parent, that's what set your dad off. OP, you didn't read. I went to online classes. I guess this lockdown doesn't even exist to you, does it? I forget. You morons always act as if it isn't real. Your reasons for avoiding college and quitting your job don't sound particularly strong. OP, you're a moron. Go figure. A lockdown isn't enough. I'd rather not get sick and possibly not make it. I've already had a friend pass. Don't know why that's not a good enough reason. Without another job to replace it, you just sound entitled. OP, you don't read, do you? I left because I was going nowhere and getting no hours. I'll give you no job lined up, but buzz off. I made a mistake. I didn't realize it was my first job. Not everyone is perfect like you. I wanted something more hours, not 8 to 12 hours a week. That's nonsense. I was only making barely anything. It was my first job. You're a super jerk. You're probably making yourself look a little better in this interaction, and fair enough. By your own description, this is in character for your stepdad, and he's likely trying to help you and motivate you. If I had to guess, he's probably tried to give you advice and direction, but is maybe thinking you just want the free ride. Don't give up hope. If they've been good to you this far, work with them to find your path. Life can be so much easier not doing it alone with your family's support and resources of time, money, and experience. Put aside your video games and see if they want to spend more time together where you can discuss these things naturally and let them feel like they're a part of your life and you value their opinions. Just some thoughts to see if anything rings true. OP. I got advice. Work harder and never settle for less. I was tired of so little hours at GameStop. I begged, I busted my tail, and got no reward. No thanks. Nothing but more cut hours. So, he says all you do is play video games. How close is this to the truth? You eventually need to become a productive member of society who is financially self-sufficient. Your parents should reinforce that. You should be working or else training for a job or getting educated, or both. You just quit a job with no better job to move into. Bad idea. Are you spending 40 hours a week looking for another one? If not, start doing this now. 60 hours a week if you're in danger of being kicked out. Generally, the rule is, don't quit a job until you have a better one. It's okay if you don't know what you want to train for at 18. In that case, work minimum wage jobs until you figure it out. Then take classes to get that job. If you can afford it, go to college. A satisfying high-wage job with great promotions is not going to fall into your lap. See if you can get a job and stay at home. Trying to live independently is no joke. Living in a shelter will get everything you have stolen, even your shoes. Don't go there. OP. It is true. In my defense, it's miserable. I'm not used to being indoors, but this lockdown has made everything so bad. My area is just horrible. I'm so afraid to really risk my life. I risked my life working at GameStop, and now I had my shot, so I'm not as afraid. But yeah, I have underlying health issues, and I'm afraid of getting sick. I guess that makes me a failure. I realize I should risk my life to make money. Update. I lied. Okay, I'm sorry, Reddit. I admit I lied. I know the reason and always have. It's the same reason my parents divorced. My anger issues. It's the reason why I quit my job. I got angry and stormed out without really being a mature adult about it. My parents see the writing on the wall, and they see that it's only getting worse. I confronted my mom, and after a shouting match, she came up to my room and tearfully told me, "This is why we want you gone. You can't control your anger and it scares us." I fly off the handle at the slightest provocation. When I play games, I get super game rage, and I destroy things. I do have a habit of breaking things. Stepdad told me they'll let me stay if I get help and prove that I can control my anger. He thinks maybe if I have direction or goals, I can manage my anger. But I have to prove that I can. Until I do, I have to get out. They're afraid of me. They're afraid of my anger, and they don't know what else to do. They've tried talking to me before. They can't afford therapy. They just hope that it would go away. But it hasn't, and frankly, it's getting much worse. I don't disagree. I exploded in rage on someone last thread. I got so mad that I broke my keyboard in rage. Over what? A comment I didn't like. Don't even ask what I did when they initially told me I was being kicked out. But yeah, I have anger issues and I don't know how to control them. I'm sorry for the deception. I just didn't want to admit that I have anger problems. I still see myself as innocent. I know deep down I messed up, but my emotions say otherwise. Emotional self-control is one of the hardest things to teach someone, especially if it's not taught when they're young. I know someone with anger issues. Luckily, his parents had the means to get him into therapy when he was a preteen, and that helped him get a handle on things. I can only imagine how difficult it is for both OP and his parents. I know what it feels like when it seems your emotions are controlling you and not the other way around, as I assume most of us have at one point or another. I hope he's able to get a handle on things, but I know it's not that easy and not likely something he'll be able to do on his own. Well, that's it. No good boy points for you. No tendies for you. With intense gamer rage like this, no wonder they're kicking you out. Something tells me you spend a lot of time on Discord and drinking high fructose-laden carbonated beverages. Am I the jerk for going to my sister's dream school when she just got rejected? So I got into Cornell last week. Honestly, I thought it was a fluke. I'm not smart at all. I got a 28 ACT, a decent GPA, because my school grade inflates considerably. I had some decent extracurriculars, but nothing remotely competitive enough to get me into a school at Cornell. But anyways, my twin sister is the opposite of me. She's a genius. She has way more impressive stats, 34 ACT, and she only took it once, compared to my 3 times. She has way better grades, way cooler extracurriculars. Everyone always looked up to her as the smart one. I didn't and still don't mind, it's true. The only reason I can fathom I got in and she didn't is that she applied to the engineering college while I applied to arts and sciences. I don't know if too many of you guys are familiar with Cornell, but they have a bunch of different colleges you can apply to, each with their different admission criteria. Well, last week, decisions for Ivies came out. Unfortunately for my sister, she didn't get into a single one, including her first choice, Cornell. She checked as soon as it was available and called me bawling. I consoled her and told her everything was going to be okay, that who cares what school you go to, that she was brilliant and was going to be successful no matter where she goes. Well, anyways, I pretty much resolved that I was getting rejected, so I didn't even bother to look at my email until later that night. Well, I guess surprises do happen sometimes, because I'm a Cornellian. I got in. I just don't know how, but I did. I really want to go, but this would devastate my sister. All week she's been crying and solemn and sad. She's been angry at her friends who got into top schools, especially the ones with lower stats. She's decided to go to NYU, but she just hasn't been herself. I haven't told our parents. I think they assumed I didn't get in because she didn't. Am I being selfish? Should I just go with her to NYU? We always thought we were going to go to school together, but it's Cornell. I couldn't in a million years imagine that I'd get in. I've been researching obsessively about it, and I can't shake the desire that if I don't go, I'll regret it. Ithaca looks beautiful. It's a small town, which I would love to get away with from the huge city that is New York. It seems like a dream opportunity. Am I being a bad sister? I know she would be upset. We were supposed to go to school together. It would crush her. I really don't have anyone else to talk to. Am I the jerk for going to her dream school, especially considering how much harder she's worked compared to me? Update. So everyone told me that I should go, so I decided to tell my sister. Well, she started screaming from excitement and got, not actually, mad that how couldn't I tell her earlier, and she's so proud of me. But seconds later, her excitement just turned to sadness. She went from super giddy to depressed in seconds, and she started bawling, uncontrollably bawling. I tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away and locked herself in our room. I'm going to give her some alone time right now, and we can talk more about it later. Update 2. So my sister sent me a text, and it said, "I'm sorry for how I reacted. Please don't be mad. I'm so happy for you and your accomplishments. It's just that after I got rejected, I at least had the consolation that I get to go to school with you and we can be together. But now you're going to where I wanted to be, and I'm just so sad. I worked so hard and did everything I could to go to the best school I can, and I just feel like all my hard work was just wasted effort. I'm sorry I'm ranting. I just need more time." I'm not going to lie. When I read this, I cried. A lot of you are saying that I obviously must have attributes that made me desirable, but I really don't. I don't deserve my acceptance. I did my homework between classes, barely studied for anything, took the easiest AP classes available, etc. Meanwhile, I see my sister always taking the hardest classes, studying as hard as she can, always volunteering. She deserves it, not me, and seeing her so hurt pains me. I'm really strongly just considering going to NYU with her. Everyone at Cornell will be just like her, and I don't stand a chance. And I know if I go to Cornell, we're going to drift apart, which would suck because we're best friends, and I just don't want to lose my sister. Update 3. So I told my parents, and they did not react how I would have expected them to. First, they tried to insist that Cornell made a mistake between our applications. Then they went on to explain how I should go to NYU with my sister. I thought it was strange because they definitely would have supported my sister going to Cornell if I didn't get in. My sister apparently thought so too, because she asked why would I not go to Cornell, and they said how unfair it was that I basically slacked off in high school and was able to go when my sister was the hard-working one who busted her tail at school. I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but that hurt. I knew they always thought my sister was the smarter one. They've made it clear multiple times. But to hear them say that I don't deserve my spot really sucked, even though they're probably right. I stood there in silence, but my sister stood up for me. She asked them how could they say something so cruel to their daughter, that I 100% have every right to be there, and that they should apologize for being so rude. My parents were shocked because we're both very passive people, and neither of us ever talked to them like that before. This started an argument, and long story short, we're currently in our rooms. I'm just so thankful to have her stand up for me. I realize that I have internalized a lot of the comments they've made over the years. I'm glad I have my sister who actually believes in me. I still don't know if I want to go to NYU or Cornell, mostly because I just don't want to go to school without her. She's my best friend, and going 4 years without someone who just thinks so positively about you just seems so long. At the end of the day, I always thought the NYU was going to be the school I was going to, so I wouldn't lose much by choosing it over Cornell. I'm going to talk about it more with my sister and look into both schools more. Update. So later that day, my parents actually came to me and apologized for everything. I know everyone in the last post really hated them, but my parents are actually good people. They have flaws, but we all do. They knew I was smart and even encouraged me to apply to schools like Cornell. They just automatically assumed my sister would get in, especially versus me, which if you look at our scores, I can't say they should be blamed. Nevertheless, they realized that they were being jerks, and they apologized for making me feel like I'm not as capable as my sister. That they were shocked, but it was no excuse for what they said or how they made me feel, and they loved me and apologized for what they said. And for the moment you've all been waiting for, I decided that I want to go to Cornell. It was such a tough choice and wasn't made without serious consideration, but ultimately I'll be happier in Ithaca. Plus, my sister is going to try to transfer after our freshman year. If she still wants to go, she may find that she loves NYU after all that time. Whatever she decides, I have no doubt she will be extremely successful. Plus, it'll be good to spend some time apart from each other and grow as people. NYC is only a short bus ride away, so we can definitely see each other during holidays and breaks. I want to thank everyone for their overwhelmingly positive support. Am I the jerk for insisting on living with my dad to attend a better school? I'm 15, male, living with my mom since she and my dad divorced. My dad just got married to a woman with 2 sons who are 13 and 8, and they all moved into her house. Where I'm currently living with my mom isn't great, especially compared to where my dad lives now. Even the schools there are much better. My school doesn't send students to top universities, while this other school sends students to them, so it's a huge difference. I talked to my mom about it, and she thought it might be a good idea for me to live with my dad for the sake of the better school, so I brought up the idea to my dad. He told me he needed to think about it and would get back to me. After a few days, he told me it wasn't possible. Naturally, I asked him why, and he explained that their house only has 3 bedrooms, theirs and 1 for each of his sons. He said this is a new phase in their lives, and they need time to adjust to living together. He also mentioned that my stepbrothers and I haven't spent much time together, so there's a chance of conflicts arising. He thinks I should get to know my stepbrothers better before making a big change that could disrupt the family dynamics. I didn't agree with his answer though. I told him I'd be totally fine sharing a room with my 13-year-old stepbrother, and we've never had any issues when we've hung out. I also pointed out that saying no to this opportunity could seriously affect my college plans, given that the school in that area is much better. I explained that I spend a lot of time at school studying or in extracurricular activities, so I'll not impact a lot in family dynamics. I'm very obedient, and I'll do all chores that they need done at the house. I'll spend the weekends at my mom's house. But he stuck to his decision. I really want to move in, so I reached out to my grandparents and uncles to talk to my dad. They had a chat with him, and he called me afterward pretty angry. He said I should have accepted his first answer, and now the whole family is against him, thinking he's not acting correctly. I want to live with my dad, but I can't seem to get him to be cool with it. I get that their house doesn't have enough rooms for each kid, but I'm willing to share. I understand it's a different dynamic for those used to having a room to themselves, but it's new for me too. I admit I don't know my stepbrothers that well, But up to now, I've never had any relationship issues with anyone in my life. I've always been respectful and helped with chores, and that wouldn't change now. I don't understand where the fear that I could cause harm to them is coming from. I genuinely see this opportunity as very important, but I'm at a loss for how to convince my dad to let me live with them. I'm in need of ideas. I know you're only a teen, but you need to grow up a bit here. You're being very selfish. Why would you want to be somewhere you're clearly not wanted? It's your stepmom's house. It's not like your dad bought the house with her. OP. First, I'll be there every weekend because it's also my dad's house. Actually, if I attend school there, I'll spend Monday through Thursday there, and I'll be with my mom on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's just one day of difference. Second, there's a significant distinction if I go to school in my dad's district or my mom's district. I want to get into a good college. College can make a huge difference in life. Update. Well, I guess any chance of me studying near my stepmom's house is over. A few days ago, I messaged my dad asking what time he'd pick me up on Friday to spend the weekend at their place. He didn't respond, so I asked again, and he said he wouldn't be picking me up, that I wouldn't be spending the weekend there. I asked why, and he said it's not his weekend, it's the next one. I was really upset by this because he never used the weekend is his or not excuse. Before he got married, we spent practically every weekend together. To me, this showed that he truly chose his new family over me. He knew I was already upset about the school situation, and he did this to show me that I'm not welcome there. I told him that it's okay for him to choose his new family, but he didn't need to pick me up anymore, that he could just forget I exist and I'd do the same. I logged into Instagram, which I don't use, to block him, and I saw a picture of him at an amusement park with my stepbrothers, and he had written, "Me and my boys." He didn't even invite me to go with them. I have no idea when that was. He truly excluded me from his life. I got even more furious and sent him a message telling him to enjoy having 2 sons now instead of just 1, and that I wanted him to go buzz off. My dad called me multiple times. I answered once, and he started scolding me, saying I'm acting like a kid, and I hung up on him and didn't pick up again. He sent several messages saying he wants to talk to me. I was really naive in this whole situation. He replaced me months ago. I couldn't bike to school because of the knee surgeries I had, and I just realized now that he never once took me to school. It was always my grandparents or my mom. Lately, I've seen him very little, and I thought it was because of the surgeries and recovery, but apparently he only had space for every other weekend, whereas before his new family, he was always available for me. My mom is upset with me too. She says I lost my reason, that I have to talk to my dad, that I'm not behaving appropriately. As far as I'm concerned, I'll never talk to my dad again. Now I'm gonna spend the night staying in my room because if I step out, my mom's gonna try to force me to talk to him. I don't know if I'm doing right or wrong, but right now I'm just really angry and sad. I never thought my dad could replace me like this. I thought he truly cared about me. Edit. People are saying that my mom is taking my dad's side. Nope. She doesn't want me to be in a fight with my dad. She's saying that we need to talk, listen to each other. I guess no mom wants her kid to be in a fight with her dad. But I don't want to talk to my dad though. Update. He sent a lot of messages last night. He's saying that we need to talk in person, that I'm misunderstanding everything. He came over early this morning, but I told my mom I didn't want to talk to him and I locked myself in my room. He wants to come tonight and talk. Update 2. I talked to my dad, but I told him I'd only talk if my mom were there too. The 3 of us sat down at the table. My mom said I should be the first to speak, but when I started talking, she said it wasn't what I should say and that I should apologize first. So I apologized to my dad for the language I used. Then right after, my mom said I'm grounded for 2 weeks for my language, stating that nothing justifies what I said to him. It's my first time being grounded in my life. Then it was my dad's turn to talk. He said I'm being immature and unfair. He explained that he has other people in his life who are important now, so he can't give me the same attention as before. I tried to talk, and my mom told me to listen quietly and that I'd have my chance to speak later. He mentioned that I act like everything has to be according to my will and circled back to the school situation. He told my mom that I talked to my grandparents and uncles, and my mom got upset about that, adding another week to my grounding. And when I tried to complain, she said she was disappointed in me for not understanding that I should respect my parents' decisions. So I figured it would be better not to argue further as it would extend my grounding. So I'm grounded for 3 weeks now, both for my language I used with my dad and not respecting his decision. Finally, he said he's always done everything to be present in my life and give me the best that he can. He said he feels unjustly treated after years of dedication, and I treat him like he's done nothing for me. I have to agree that he was very present and dedicated until recently, but I can't feel that anymore. When I started talking, my mom said if my tone got aggressive, the conversation would end, as it's meant to be a friendly discussion, not a fight. I tried to stay as calm as possible so that the conversation wouldn't end before I could express what I was thinking. I said I understood that there are more people I need to share my dad's attention with now. However, these people are always with him since they live together, and the little time I'd have with him would only be on weekends. I mentioned that for the first time, he brought up the legal aspect that I'm only entitled to be with him every other weekend. I said this showed that he deliberately chose to decrease the time we spend together. I also said that having new people around doesn't mean he can forget about my feelings or me. I told him that the photo he posted at the amusement park with the caption, "Me and my boys," hurt me deeply. My mom hadn't seen the photo, so I showed it to her, and she was upset with my dad too. I said I understood the difficulty of me moving to my stepmom's house, but I felt extremely unjustly treated by the arguments presented. It was as if my stepbrother's difficulty sharing a room with me was just as important as a good educational opportunity for me. I said he should be concerned about my future, but it seems like the only opinions that matter are those of his new kids. He said I was misinterpreting things, but that he'd be more careful about posting pictures and captions that could hurt me. About the weekend issue, he said we're all still adjusting, and indeed, he'd like me to be able to come over every weekend like it used to be. But now he needs more predictability since more people are involved. I mentioned again that he was putting others' desires ahead of mine and that my wishes were never a priority compared to theirs. This showed me that he had preferences. He fell silent for a moment and then said he'd fix the situation. I'll always be welcome to visit and stay where he lives. He also said he wouldn't bring up the every other weekend visitation arrangement again. He said the school issue is more complicated, but that he's still looking into a solution. He again said I need to understand that circumstances change and I'm still his priority, but now there are more people involved. He mentioned he knows it's not easy for a 15-year-old, but I'm smart enough to know that he's speaking the truth. He invited me to spend the weekend with him, but I declined, saying I don't feel welcome at the moment. He said he loves me and that if I ever doubt that at any point, I can call him. So that's where we are. We're at a bit of an impasse. He's been sending me several messages every day to show that he's there for me. I feel like I'm being a bit unfair to him. On the other hand, I feel like his new family doesn't want me around. Imagine already only seeing your kid, who you love supposedly, during the weekends, and then telling them that you don't even want to see them then. The dad trying to play the victim here is quite funny to read. Who needs a biological kid when OP's dad can look like a hero for fathering stepkids? I feel bad for OP. Neither of his parents seem to be looking out for him. This dad is dropping his kid for the new shiny ones, and I have no doubt his wife is egging this on. The "you can come over anytime" will be short-lived. So much of what his dad said is such blatant BS, and I'm surprised mom didn't call him out on it. Sadly, I think OP is going to find himself abandoned in the next 6 months to a year. Goodness, I hope I'm wrong though. This poor kid is really getting the short end of the stick here. He sounds quite a bit smarter and more reasonable than any of the adults in this scenario. If dad married new stepmom without the kids ever spending enough time around each other to develop a relationship, he moved too fast. Stepmom fully bringing him into her family while excluding his son is inexcusable. Sidelining OP's education because integrating the family would be a challenge is inexcusable. Some people treat kids like inconvenient pets. This makes me so sad. His dad is obviously replacing him and just got caught in the act, and his mom seems way more worried about respect and not her son's feelings. I really hope OP has someone else in his corner. It's like everyone posting is the idiot. It's not the dad's call. It's not his house. Stepmom decides. This kid sounds like a sociopath, along with naive about family dynamics. His father has moved into a new house with his new wife and 2 sons recently, and the kid is like, "I need to live with you for school," not wanting to be a part of the family dynamic at all. In fact, it sounds like he just wants to game the system and doesn't even consider any other issues or complications. If his parents cannot get his therapy because of money, how in the name of Thor will they be able to pay for a T20 college? There is so much missing from this, I cannot begin to trust the narrator. P.S. After reading some of the top comments, I expect to be pulverized in the votes, but I stand by my take on it. I'm sorry, but she married a man with a kid, and they don't even have a room for him to sleep in just for when he visits on weekends. The readjustment process should have started the second they knew they were getting married to have space for OP. If that's where his father lives, then he has a right to have a space for himself there. And if they weren't willing to find a way to accommodate his presence, then they never should have gotten married, because regardless of his desire to live there full time, they would already be jerks for not having his own space set up for him just for when he visits. Do you realize the father could actually disown his son? Does this make him a crappy father? Yes. Would this make OP's situation better? No. OP is acting like a spoiled brat. He could have handled it better and actually gotten things his way. Am I the jerk for hiding my savings from my fiancé? I recently got engaged to my fiancé after 2 years of dating and told her we should probably start looking at houses. She told me that we didn't have the money for a deposit on a mortgage, but I personally have a lot of money in savings. It's a little bit more than $160,000. My girlfriend was initially just shocked because it's a lot of money for a 24-year-old to have saved. I've been extremely lucky in life. After a couple of days, she began to be annoyed at me. She felt like I was hiding this from her. I told her that I didn't hide it from her. I was just raised to not talk about personal finances with anyone other than someone you're married to, and I figured engaged is close enough that I'm happy to talk about it. I also said that I had actually used these savings to help her before. I've paid her rent a few times when she couldn't, and paid a couple $1,000s for her dog to get surgery. She was still quite angry and has been giving me the silent treatment for the past day. My parents don't see the problem. Her parents understand my perspective, but think I should have told her when we moved in together last year. None of our friends know because I don't feel comfortable talking about it with them. I've already asked her if we can talk about it when she's ready, and she just said that she'll let me know when she is. I don't think this is relationship ending, but I know she probably wants me to admit I was wrong. I don't think I've done anything wrong, so I'm asking you guys more so out of curiosity for what others think. Not the jerk. And for the love of goodness, do not marry her without a prenuptial agreement. Don't say you haven't been warned. Exactly. She's upset because she's thinking of what she could have been doing with that money. Don't marry without a prenup. Exactly. Her thought is, but I could have done so much with that money. Not the jerk. Why is she upset? You need to ask her this and listen closely to her response. She may think that because you have a comfortable savings, you should have been paying more of the rent or bills. This isn't true. You pay your way with your earnings, not your savings. Knowing about your savings should not change any part of her life at all. So why is she mad? What difference does it make? If anything, this is a happy surprise. Had you been drowning in debt, she would have reason to be annoyed. As it is, though, what's her problem? Only thing I could think of is she wants him spending more money on her if he's got that kind of cash saved up. Not the jerk. Get a new fiance. This one is not ready to be an adult. Not the jerk. I've been through this same thing before. I've talked to friends who have also. Most younger guys these days who save a large amount of money, their girlfriends are going to flip out when they find out about it. They feel entitled to have known about that money and to have had some level of access to it. When I was 19, my girlfriend found out I had $1,000 in my savings account. She completely lost it and said with all that money, we could have been doing so much more. Restaurants, concerts, etc. Now I'm in my 30s and I'm a millionaire. If I had stayed with her or someone like her, what kind of financial position do you think I'd be in? My Karen daughter is demanding that I pay for her mother's college tuition. We divorced 20 years ago. I, male 58, and my daughter, who's 27, are in a huge argument over money. A little background first. My ex-wife and I divorced before our daughter was even 1 year old. Custody fights were brutal until she was 9. Her mom lived in an apartment on the rough side of town, and when she was with me, she had an upper middle class life. She had ponies and private coaches for sports that she liked. Her mom liked to make me out as the bad guy to her. Yes, I probably tried to make sure that she knew I was not what her mother told her. When it came time for college, she had a full scholarship to major institutions, including one where I went as an undergrad and another where I went postgrad. Her mother told her that she should never pick a school that I went to. In the end, she picked a college where she only got a 20% scholarship. I told her that that was her choice and she would need to work to cover the cost. I also gave her $500 a month allowance. After graduation and through grad school, I continued doing that. After she moved on and was working, the only time I saw her was when she needed money for something. After never returning calls or texts that I sent, she shows up at my house. During her stay, I asked when she thought her student loan payments would be due and how much they would be. She then said that they would be around $200. I, in hindsight, was foolish in offering to pay them for her. She then said that her mother was also just finishing college and asked if I would pay her loans as well. I explained that we had been divorced for over 20 years now, and what her mother does is not my responsibility. My daughter blew up and said that I was being unfair because I had done much better than her mom and I needed to help her. She then said she never wanted to see me again. Am I the jerk for saying, fine, then don't show up looking for money for car repairs or anything, and that she needs to get her phone off my cell plan? Update. The only time I sent my daughter money was while she was in college. After college, it was her showing up only when she needed money for something. After getting her master's, she was unable to find a job that she felt she could succeed in near her mother or myself, and is currently working a 6 to 7 hour drive away from both of us. One of the other questions seemed to say I only tried to buy her love. I was the pretty involved dad, attending all of her school events, coaching sports teams, and officer in the PTSA. She will always be welcome to come home, but she can't just show up and treat me like an ATM. Several comments were how could I allow my former wife to live in what I called a bad part of town. My former wife has been married and divorced 2 times after our relationship broke. Her mother's life choices were hers, and she was responsible for them. During the years that I paid child support, the amount I was paying her was more than she was paying for rent. Having a pony or private coaches does not make us middle class. The wife and I were lower middle class at best growing up. Our parents were hardworking and they loved us. Because of that, we wanted to provide both our daughters that fairy tale childhood. We made sacrifices so both of our daughters had that life. Before anyone says it, my wife had a daughter before we met that is 6 months younger than my daughter. No, to me, she is not my stepdaughter. She's my daughter. I'm the only father she has ever known, and I love both my daughters with all my heart. Not the jerk. Your daughter made poor decisions. Ex-wife is not your problem. Daughter is 27 and no longer your responsibility. You helped her through undergrad and grad school. Poor choices like declining full scholarships are what lead to being in a better or worse financial state. Now she wants you to bear the consequences of her poor choices and support your long-gone ex? You can let her walk away guilt-free. I would recommend some sort of middle path where you can both cool off and maintain a relationship, but not at the expense of being emotionally and financially manipulated. Not the jerk, but I fathom why a parent would encourage their kid to turn down a full-ride scholarship and have their kid starting out saddled with debt. We live in America, and education, like healthcare, is ridiculously expensive, especially when there was an alternative. Your daughter uses you for money and doesn't respect you. She respects her mom, and that's the only parent she listens to. She feels as if you owe both of them. It's up to you to figure out if that's the price you want to continue to pay to have her in your life. You're the jerk. Why do rich people always hoard their money instead of helping others with it? At the end of the day, this is the woman who had your daughter for you. Helping pay your daughter's student loans is literally the bare minimum, and you don't deserve any sort of award for it. Helping your ex would be the right thing to do, but I don't expect you to do it. Rich, greedy men like you are exactly why I'm perfectly fine living on my SSI income instead of wasting my days away at some job that I'd hate. People like you don't deserve any of the money you have, and if I can get a piece of it, thanks to systems that have been set in place by our government, you bet your butt I'm going to take advantage of it. Sorry, not sorry. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. I think that last commenter was the biggest jerk of them all. That's gotta be one of the most Reddit things I've heard in a while. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that I hate her new job? My wife, 37 female, and I, 38 male, have been married for 12 years and we have 3 kids who are 10, 8, and 6. During lockdown, my wife's job allowed her to switch to 100% work from home. They never required her to go back to the office because her productivity actually increased, so there was no need. It made things easier for us too. I dropped the kids off at school and daycare in the morning, and she picked them up in the afternoon. She was able to keep up with a few things around the house during the day. We saved on gas and car maintenance, etc. A few months ago, she was contacted by a recruiter about a job. It would be a nice step up in her career path as well as a boost in pay, but there were drawbacks. The company had no work-from-home policy and would require her to work in the office. This was apparently non-negotiable. It would also be a 45-minute commute for her. We talked it over a lot, and I expressed my concerns about how this would impact our daily lives. I told her that I don't necessarily think that the bump in pay is worth the major changes to our daily lives. Not to mention the stress that a long commute can have on people, and that could impact their mood and how they interact at home. She assured me that everything would be fine and that we would adjust as a family, and soon the new routine would just become our new normal. I told her that I would never tell her to not take the job, but I just don't know if it's worth the changes that it's going to bring. Ultimately, the decision was hers, and she accepted the new job. She's been there for about 10 weeks now. To say it's been an adjustment is an understatement. She wakes up and leaves before the kids even get up. She'll help get a few things ready for them before she goes, but the entire morning kids routine is now on me. I also do both drop-off and pick-up for all of the kids too. Evenings have been a huge mess because I get home and try to get the kids distracted while I start dinner. When my wife gets home, she's usually stressed from the drive. Her commute has turned into over an hour due to construction and traffic and takes 15 minutes for herself to calm down before eating alone. Then after dinner, she's going to bed earlier because she has to wake up earlier. I told her that I feel her new job has put an unfair amount of household and childcare duties on me and that she's being far less present in our lives when she's home. She's told me that we just need to give it more time to adjust and things will get easier. I told her that 10 weeks is a pretty good adjustment period and I hate it so far. She told me I'm being an unsupportive jerk and that I need to give it more time. Edit. I don't have the emotional bandwidth right now to deal with the huge amount of comments that I'm getting here. Those kinds of responses are why men don't open up when they feel exactly like I do right now and just bottle things up. I have to get ready to pick up my kids. They're getting Happy Meals tonight because forget it. Everyone sucks here. You two are talking past each other. You say you wanted to come up with solutions, but you don't suggest any actual solutions. She was dismissive of your concerns and also didn't suggest any solutions. She's making more money. Use that to outsource some of this stuff. As a general matter, I don't think it's fair to expect that over the course of a lifetime, your spouse's career will never require you to pick up the slack at home. These things tend to shift. She handled more stuff while she was work from home. Now it's your turn. If it's unsustainable for you, then absolutely talk about solutions. But I hate it is not a solution. OP. I did offer solutions, but the character limit prevented me from including every single aspect of this. Some of my solutions were doing meal prep on weekends so dinner time is easier, or possibly ordering meal kits. Those were things we agreed on. But others, like me telling her she needs to find a way to be more present in our daily lives because me and the kids feel like we never see her, were met with more hostility from her. I get your point, but that's not a solution, just a complaint. Maybe something like have a fixed time for her to recover when she comes home and a fixed time to spend with family would be a better suggestion. Make some new family traditions. Maybe even something silly, like a loving phrase you say to each other that signifies her having fully arrived at home. I'm sure she doesn't want you and the kids to feel neglected, so if her reaction is negative, it's about the delivery. This is your chance to find creative solutions. Who knows? Maybe you have a mandatory, to a degree, cuddle time every day, and maybe your kids will remember that fondly forever. I understand you're frustrated with the situation, but this can either be a tough time in your family relationships, or it can be the start of something new, with the potential for being an awesome thing. It's up to the both of you what it ends up being. You came up with good solutions, but this is all on your wife at the moment. OP told her that he and the kids feel like she's not present in their lives anymore, and that's the truth. But they were met with even more hostility. She's not listening, and she's the one that needs to change. Not the jerk. I don't understand the people saying it's your time to do it when you've pointed out the fact that before her new job, you both used to split the kids' routine together. And I don't see what the issue is with keeping up with housework since she worked from home. It seems like you had a good dynamic going on and balanced teamwork. Because that's not what he described. His words make it sound like he's just sad that she's not doing as much at home anymore, not that they had an equal balance before. You're the jerk. Why is it too much to expect men to support their partner's advancement and career when women do it all the time? Suck it up, soldier. These are your kids too. Genuinely curious if you'd say the same if this were a wife with the exact same complaint about her husband's new job. You're the jerk. She was doing all that and more while she was working from home. Time for you to step up and be an equal parent and not stifle your partner's nice step up in her career path as well as a boost in pay. What a hypocrite. Guy I went to school with refused to say that he knew me, then he got upset when he wanted something from me. My wife and I had a New Year's resolution to do more hands-on volunteer work this year. So me, being an IT guy, I found a group that refurbishes computers for students. I thought it was a slam dunk, sounded like an easy thing to do, and it was aligned with what I do for a living. On my first day and orientation, I ran into a guy that I went to school with around 10 years ago. I spent 3 years in school with this guy and I immediately recognized him. The guy is on my LinkedIn as well, so I know him. We did projects together. There are pictures of us at graduation. I 100% know the guy. I went over to say hi, and he was sort of evasive about saying anything to me. I was initially confused because I thought we were on good terms. When I said, "Hey man, it's me from school," he said he knew who I was, but apparently once graduation was done, he decided to move on from school and be done with it. He told me he wanted to deal with adults and wanted nothing to do with people he went to school with. This was despite the fact that we were now in our 30s, so we weren't exactly students anymore. So that kind of hurt, but whatever. I respected his decision and I left him alone. There were a dozen other people there, so I went about with orientation and everything. I didn't see the guy again for the rest of the day. A couple hours later, when we were all done, I had met a few people who were actually sociable, and we decided to go across the street to a pub. I was in a good mood, and I told them the first round was on me because I had a good day. So we go over to the pub, and that guy shows up and sits down at the table. I ask, "What are you doing here? I'm not buying you a drink. You don't know me." The guy called me a jerk and a bunch of other names and then walked away. I explained the situation to the group I was with, and they were all like, "What?" I got an email from the event coordinator yesterday. Apparently, the guy complained about me, said I'm not a team player. Luckily, the coordinator heard my side of the story and was fine with it, so I'm good. But I have to continue dealing with this guy if I continue going to volunteer. So, what on earth? I like the organization, and I'd want to continue with it. A few people have mentioned to me that I should have just bought the guy a drink, but out of principle, I won't buy a drink for someone who disrespects me. Am I the jerk for telling the guy to leave the table at the pub? Edit. This was a college friend, not a high school friend. More info. I messaged another guy I went to school with who also knows the guy. He told me that they used to hang out a lot until around 4 years ago, when out of the blue, the guy just stopped talking to him. He sent him a crazy long text message, basically saying the same thing that he said to me. "I moved on, and I don't want to associate with old classmates." Not the jerk. Guy's really gonna tell you he doesn't want anything to do with you and still expect you to buy him a drink? The man you used to be friendly with at school flat out told you he wanted to move on and have nothing to do with his old classmates from so long ago. Now, by the time you and the other volunteers went to the pub across the road, old classmate may have reconsidered. Or maybe he thought he could get a free drink, or he wanted to sit with the other volunteers and you were just there too. Or who knows what he was thinking, to sit at the table. But you made it clear you weren't going to buy him a drink, and he didn't like that. Sucks for him, not the jerk. Fake vegetarian on a flight. I'm a cabin crew, flight attendant. I've been working this job for over 10 years now. Any issues that crop up during my workday, I will bend over backwards to accommodate people if I can. However, there are unfortunately a handful of people that are dishonest to try and get what they want. Fake injuries to try to get upgraded, fake birthdays, you name it, people have tried it. And believe me, I've had loads of scenarios where people try to cheat the system because it makes them feel special or that they have one-upped me, I guess. Let me tell you about a fake vegetarian I had on board. He was flying in economy, coach, and the second from last row. He wanted the pasta option. I apologized and told him due to popular demand, we had run out in the middle of the cabin, but we did have the chicken option instead if he wanted that. Without skipping a beat, he said, "I'm a vegetarian. Last time they brought me a meal from the business class, so I'll just wait for that." Now, this is something I would have offered anyway as a nicety, if available, as I'm not too much of a jerk and I genuinely like helping people out if I can. After all, it's a 747, not a 7-Eleven, as the saying goes. Anyway, the way he just expected it right off the bat, before I could even offer a solution, left a slightly bad taste in my mouth. And also, I smelled a rat. I was 99% sure that I had cleared away an empty wrapper of smoky bacon crisps from him earlier on. And no, they weren't a veggie brand, as I have the same ones occasionally. I was certain that he was being picky and wanted a higher quality meal. Plus, any regular flyer would know how often we run out of the veggie options and to pre-order a veggie meal. I said, "It's unfortunate that you didn't pre-order a vegetarian meal. I will see what I can do for you though. Just give me 5 minutes to finish up here." I went up to business class. They had also run out of the veggie option, so I went up to first class and asked if they could spare anything. We ended up putting a few leaves together with a bit of dressing. They spend thousands more up there and can dine at any time they want to, so they didn't want me taking any of the hot veggie options in case someone wanted it later. Fair enough. Then I thought, I could probably have some fun with this fake vegetarian. Cue malicious compliance. I brought it back down on a silver tray and held it above his eye line so he couldn't see what it was. I explained that unfortunately, the vegetarian business class option had run out. Then he went to cut me off so he could complain, but I held up my hand and said, "However, I managed to go one step further and I got the last vegetarian meal from first class." Then I pulled a linen cloth off the top of the tray as I placed the salad down right in front of him. It was a very basic but large salad, and his face said it all. His face went from a smug, "Ha ha, I worked the system," to, "What is this?" within 3 seconds flat. He then said, "I wanted something hot. I'll just have the chicken then." I put on a shocked face and said, "I can't give you that, sir. I would feel awful." He responded with, "Don't worry about it. It's fine." I gave him an, "Are you sure you're vegetarian?" look, and I brought back the chicken, by which point it had sat drying up in the oven a little bit longer. Bon appetit. Just to say, even if he was a real vegetarian, he should have pre-ordered. Same goes for gluten-free, vegan, kids meals, diabetic, etc. Anyways, that's my story. I don't know who I married. I know the title might sound dramatic, and I know my family is my responsibility, but some tips or advice would be appreciated. Before someone says I shouldn't have kids if I'm poor, it's too late to not have them. I posted last week about how my wife did the bi-weekly grocery store run and had $35 to get what was needed, and she spent $7 of it on Evian waters. Before she left, I offered to make her a jug of ice water because it's hot, and I knew that she was going to get thirsty. Her jug is a $50 Stanley Cup. Even though it was bought months ago, it was out of our budget, but she begged for it and swore she would use it all the time. We don't get food stamps because I make too much. I work full-time and pick up as much overtime as I can while my wife stays at home with our kids. I do everything I can to stay afloat. She tells me they were on sale and she just wanted it. That is not a sale. I immediately got frustrated because we don't have money for needs, let alone wants. She's embarrassed by going to the food pantries, so I try to do it on my lunch breaks or on my one day off. We have a tight budget. I walk to work to save gas. I pick up overtime when it's available, and I'm at the point where there aren't enough hours in the day for just me to make enough money to get us to break even. I told her she needed to find some part-time work. She's been a stay-at-home mom because daycare is expensive, but now all but one of our kids are in school. Today, she told me she would need a new interview outfit and to get her hair cut. I said we don't have money for that. Our fridge completely died a few days ago. She then started talking about all of the things she would be doing or buying for herself once she starts working. I told her the money would be going towards getting caught up on bills, getting the kids what they need, and to maybe start saving a few bucks. She said it would be her money, which caught me off guard because my paycheck isn't considered mine, nor have I ever insinuated that it is. Our kids only got one pair of new school shoes this year and no clothes. It bothered me more than it did them. My oldest has a field trip next week that she won't be able to go to because we don't have the $50. My wife chose bougie water over a few gifts from the Dollar Tree for our kids. When I asked why she doesn't care that our kids are going without, her response is, "It's only one birthday they're missing. Field trips aren't that big of a deal. At least they have something to wear to school." Very nonchalant, it is what it is attitude. She had a rough childhood where she never got celebrated, got gifts, never had new school clothes, etc., so it's not a big deal to her. I've never seen this side of her, and I don't like it. We've never been so poor, so is this just her survival mode method? Please contact your daughter's school. They often have funds to help out for kids who need extra to go on field trips. I never would have thought until I needed it for my son. Doesn't sound like a partnership, two people working together towards a common goal. Pretty painful when one partner does the complete opposite. Your wife sounds incredibly self-centered, and in a lot of ways, like she never matured past the kid who didn't get anything, so now she wants it all for herself. You're right to be concerned about her selfish attitude. Your wife is embarrassed by going to the food pantry, but not embarrassed she spent $7 out of the $35 for groceries on fancy water? I don't comment often and tell people to separate from their spouses, but this might be something to potentially think about if she's really more concerned about nice water over her kids getting new clothes for school, or just experiencing being a kid in general. We were poor growing up, but my mom always made sure we had clothes and were able to attend birthday parties and field trips. She's being very self-centered. Am I the jerk for kicking my husband's friend and his daughter out of my home, knowing they have nowhere to go? I, 32 female, and my husband, 32 male, live with our sons, who are 12 and 14, and our 3 cats. My husband has ASD, which makes it hard for him to maintain a job. This hasn't been a problem for me, as I make a decent wage and can afford a modest but decent life for our family of 4. In 2020, my husband worked at a fast food restaurant for a couple months and met a homeless man who he quickly became friends with. We'll call him Rob. He's 42. One cold night, Rob and his then girlfriend asked to stay with us for a while. We had a guest room, and though uncomfortable, I agreed. After a week, their nightly arguments between each other and general household hygiene were too much to bear, so I kicked them out. When they left, the guest room was trashed, and there were pills everywhere. As a mother, this really disturbed me, and I've never stopped being wary of Rob. Fast forward to July 1st, 2023. Our guest room has turned into a storage room, and it would take work to get it livable again. Rob has broken up with his girlfriend and has gotten custody of his daughter, who's 15, from a different woman, and her 8-month-old puppy. Rob was sick of living with his parents and burned bridges with them. My husband came to me panicked one evening, asking me to go pick them up because they have nowhere else to go. For context, only I drive. Reluctantly, I again agreed to host Rob, mostly because I can't stand his daughter. We'll call her Anne, being on the street. With the guest room out of commission, they take my elder son's room. Both my sons have bunk beds, so I figure it will be manageable temporarily. Initially, Rob promises to be out in a week. I knew it was a lie, as he had no money and no plans, but I wasn't concerned that it would take longer. My sons are in online school, so he promises to be out by the time school starts, 8:14, so my son can use his room for school. Another lie. Living with these two has been awful. They don't pay rent or do chores. Rob only works about 3 days a week. Anne eats all our expensive snack food and refuses to eat meals that I cook. She ate 12 ice cream cones in 3 days, my son's whole month of treats. Rob has ruined our yard with cigarette butts and trash everywhere. Their dog has dug in multiple places and they're not training him not to. My son's room is trashed by them and they've broken dishes. They don't clean the sink after using it and they don't flush the toilet. Living with them is driving me crazy. Anne is spoiled, but she is very sweet and she is a kid. I don't like Rob, but he says that he's gotten sober. At this point, I'm the only one who cleans, cooks, and pays bills, and I can't do it for 2 extra people. I told my husband I want them gone before my son turns 15 in October. He said I'm being unreasonable. They have nowhere to go. I told him a shelter may have resources for them, and I can't handle this anymore. It's not my fault they're in this situation, and I can't live like this. And I don't think my sons deserve this either. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your home is your sanctuary and your safe, happy place. Having Rob and his daughter there is disturbing your life, not to mention that they're not respecting your home. Your husband needs to be more understanding. Yes, they don't have any place to go, but they're not your responsibility. They were initially supposed to be out by 8:14. They've already overstayed their welcome. You shouldn't have to give up your comfort and peace of mind to accommodate Rob. I'd kick them out ASAP before they can claim squatter rights. Not the jerk. Your husband is so out of line here. You owe these people nothing. You've already gone far above and beyond, taking in homeless strangers along with their problems, their kids, their bad hygiene, their fighting, and then eating you out of house and home. They don't help. You're supporting a bunch of freeloaders. What else are you supposed to do? You pay the bills, take care of the kids, your husband works part-time, and you're having essentially no say in your own home. Girl, stop asking your husband and get these beans out of your home. Change the locks and be done with it. Again, you owe them nothing and you're putting your own kids at risk. How your husband doesn't see this is absolutely mind-boggling. Get them out yesterday, not the jerk. So many of these Reddit stories really make me appreciate the simplicity of my life. Am I the jerk for refusing to forgive my ex so his mistress can have him? My husband and I had some marital issues after the birth of our second baby. There was no lack of love or affection, at least that's what he told me. We still loved each other and we're basically in a rough place. My husband met his now girlfriend at work and I guess he developed some sort of feelings for her and her for him. He came to me one day and said that he loved me so much, but that he wanted a break for a few months because we needed to work out our issues separately. I was heartbroken, but I agreed, thinking we were going to work out our marriage. Not a week later, I heard that he was hooking up with her. I filed for divorce and haven't seen him since. This was all 3 years ago. Our divorce was finalized 2 years ago. He has tried throughout the years to get in contact with me, but I refuse to even open his emails because I miss him and I know what he would be saying. Empty sorries and apologies. For me, he cheated, even if not everyone agrees because we were on a break. His girlfriend contacted me now asking me to forgive him because according to her, he's refusing to make their relationship official. According to her, they love each other, but he's refusing to propose or start a family with her because he feels guilty about what he did to me. He tells her that they didn't deserve happiness and she thinks it's all my fault. I just wrote, "Please don't contact me again," and I blocked her on Facebook. She used alternative accounts and wrote that I'm bitter and vindictive. Am I the jerk for refusing to do this? Help my ex's mistress play family with him? How is that even on me? Not the jerk. I'm proud of you for divorcing. Too many people will put up with this for too long. And sorry, but my opinion is, when you're married and on a break, you're still married, so his cheating was not okay. You thought you were going to reconcile. There was no conversation about seeing other people. You don't owe him or his girlfriend anything, and the fault is his. He cheated while you were thinking you were working on your marriage. Just ignore these fools. My Karen neighbor reported me to the HOA for having a wood-burning fireplace. I, 25 male, own a lakeside property that was legally and officially given to me by my parents. I've been living here for 6 years, and I have some great neighbors along with some not-so-great ones. Out of all my neighbors, I've only ever had problems with one who lives right next door, named Mariette. She first moved in early this summer as she had the former house on her property demolished and rebuilt. My problem started with her over the use of my wood stove and fireplaces. With the temperatures getting colder, I've started to use them daily. My house is not equipped with any form of heating outside of the wood stove and a fireplace. This means that from fall until spring, I will constantly have them going to keep my place warm. My family never outfitted the home with anything better because it was for weekend trips, and we would winterize and leave it when things got cold. My parents thought of adding oil heating when I moved in. However, I was opposed to it because it was a waste of money, and I didn't mind splitting logs. 5 days ago, after having received my shipment of logs for the fall, I was approached by my neighbor Mariette. She came around asking for my parents, to which I said that they don't live here and that I am the homeowner. She didn't believe me and said that I was too young to be a homeowner before leaving. Later that day, I heard a knock at my door and thought it was my girlfriend, so I gave my usual greeting of, "Hey, sweet cheeks," while opening the door. Unfortunately, it was not her, and it was Mariette again, so I apologized quickly and asked what she wanted. Once again, she wanted to speak with my parents, to which, in a more stern tone, I said that I was the homeowner. This time, she finally got it and said that I'm violating HOA policy by using wood-burning fireplaces indoors and outdoors. In response, I said that as new as the house looks, I'm not a member of the group and that the town permits fireplaces and burning yard waste. She then went on to ask why I even needed them because they do nothing but harm the environment. I went on to explain that while the house exterior looks new, the house actually has been around since 1930 and still uses a wood stove and fireplace heating. She didn't believe me yet again and said she would be back with an inspector. Yesterday, once again she came with another person who introduced themselves as the HOA inspector. They tried to talk about my fireplaces, but I shut them down immediately and said that I'm not a member of their group. The guy then tried to lie by saying that the HOA is in control of all the properties in the area. I immediately called him out on the lie and said that he's either lazy or a moron for not knowing that I am not with them. We went back and forth one more time before I told them I will not listen to them and to stuff it and leave. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If this continues, inform the HOA that if they continue to harass you, you have no issues looking into legal counsel. Also, let your neighbor know that she's not allowed on your property, and if she comes over, she's trespassing. I would tell the HOA the same as the neighbor. They're not to step foot on your property or you will involve the police. In my state, I think it's best to send that in writing by certified mail and keep the proof they received it so there isn't any question when you call the police. Not the jerk. Sounds like she's going to be a real pain. As much as I hate to say it, it's time to lawyer up, or you're going to be harassed by her and the HOA. Have you ever lived somewhere with an HOA? If so, what did you think of them? Please let us know.
I prefer living somewhere with no HOA, but I also prefer living somewhere with no neighbors. People kind of suck.
Am I the jerk for reporting my daughter's car missing after her stepbrother took it without permission? I got my daughter, who's 17, a new car 2 months ago. Her stepbrother, who's 19, has gone crazy about it ever since and has been attempting to drive it, but my daughter made it clear she doesn't want him to. He'd refer to it as our car and would get mad when my daughter decorates it with pink and adds teddy bears and necklaces as decoration. He'd get angry and say that she was ruining their car and embarrassing him in front of his friends, although she never let him get inside of it. I asked my husband to talk to his son, but he said that my daughter and I need to chill. Fast forward to this past Friday. My daughter called me at work saying her stepbrother took her car while she was upstairs after he demanded the keys and she refused. I called his phone, but he didn't respond. I called my husband and I told him what happened. I told him that he needed to go bring the car back or I'd have to call the police. He called his son, then called me back, saying his son was just taking it to go to the movies with his friends and will bring it back at 9 p.m. I couldn't wait. I warned him one more time to bring it back, but he stalled. I called the police and reported it stolen. My stepson was picked up from his location and brought into the local police station. We got the car back, but it was a mess. The decorations and toys in it were gone. My daughter didn't stop crying about it. My husband blew up at me on the phone for calling the police on his son and causing him to spend the night there. They both came home the next day and a huge argument ensued, with my husband saying I made a mistake reporting the car missing and said that I escalated this situation and that I was the one who created it and I should have gotten his son a similar car or at least told my daughter to share hers. Otherwise, we wouldn't be dealing with his son's temper tantrums. The house has been full of tension since then and everyone is just mad at each other. I didn't want police involvement, but seeing my daughter cry, I just couldn't take it. This is weird. For the simple act of reporting the car stolen when it was in fact stolen, not the jerk. For marrying and subjecting yourself, and more importantly your daughter, to the environment created by your husband and stepson, you're the jerk. Get a divorce and get them as far away from your daughter as possible. Not the jerk. You told your husband to get the car back or you'd call the police. He and his son ignored you. You called the police. No one should be surprised. Why doesn't your husband buy his son a car? It sounds like your finances are separated. Does the kid work, go to school, do anything responsible with his life? Man, he's 19. He's a legal adult and he stole from his minor step-sibling. Man needs to man up and figure out this tantrum crap isn't going to blow over so easily. And now he's on the hook for legal consequences because he is, in fact, a legal adult. I can't imagine being 19 and so jealous of a high school junior I stole their car and threw their teddy bears away. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for calling the cops on him or not? Please let us know.
Dude sounds like he's got more issues than Nintendo Power.
My Karen sister-in-law stole my skincare products, ends up ruining her skin. So I'm 17, male, and my sister-in-law, who's 29, her family is hosting a family gathering. They're big on family, and they have room to invite literally everyone, which includes me, my parents, my older sister, and me, since we are technically family. Now I'm big on skincare. I had horrible skin when I was 13, and it started as a way to fix it. But even after my skin got better, I just liked it. It keeps my skin looking good, and I find it relaxing. I packed my essentials for the 2 weeks that I would be there. I'll admit, it was still quite a lot, but it wasn't insane. Now, the room I was staying in, I was sharing with one of sister-in-law's nieces around my age. The room has an en-suite bathroom. I put my things on a shelf, made sure with the niece that I wasn't taking up too much room. Sister-in-law came in to check on us and saw all of my things. She asked about some things I had since they were expensive brands. She's made it a big point that she and her family have a lot more money than my family over the years. I told her I had saved and I bought them myself. I do have a job. She asked to use them and I said no, because they were expensive and I want them to last as long as possible. She seemed annoyed, but she just left after that. Over the next few days, my sister-in-law was complaining that her skin was dry and itchy. I didn't think anything of it. Halfway through the stay, she came storming down the stairs and threw a small spray bottle at me, asking why I did this to her. I was confused and asked what she meant. Turns out she's been going into the bathroom that I share with her niece and using my skincare. But she's been using what she thought was a spray bottle of water at the end. But she's actually been using a bottle of salt water which I have Because I have 4 pretty fresh ear piercings. At first, I asked her why she's using my stuff. She said it's her family's house, so she can use it, and I told her no, it's my stuff, and I said no. She just reiterated her first point and then asked me why I would trick her like this. I explained that it's salt water for my ears, but she just called me a liar, asking why I would have it on my bathroom shelf next to the rest of my skincare stuff. She then went on about how I purposely ruined her skin. I again tried explaining myself. Sister-in-law then turns to my mother and her mother and said that she had asked about my skincare and I had explained everything, and I said the bottle was water, which was total BS. She only asked about my expensive ones. Her niece backed me up, but sister-in-law called me a liar. Mother-in-law was upset and said I'm horrible and that I'm jealous of my sister-in-law, and my mother said she's disappointed and embarrassed in me. This then caused her and my dad to argue, and now I feel like crap. Sister-in-law's family and my mother are ignoring me or being passive-aggressive, and they even threw out my salt water and won't let me make a new batch and have stopped me when I try to. I don't know what to do. Am I the jerk? Edit. Some people are confused. This isn't my dad's family, this is my brother's wife's family. Also, while salt water is normally okay for your skin, daily exposure isn't. Plus, it might not even be the salt water. Could very well be that she just had a bad reaction to another product. What works for one person might not work for another. I just had a few people asking about that. Not the jerk. What's wrong with this family? Don't use other people's stuff. Don't eat other people's food. I tried a mystery skincare product and now my skin is bad. Lucky for her, it wasn't some sort of other mix. Not the jerk, and take care of your piercings, even if you have to make a fresh batch every night. That's some serious business. You don't want an infection. It's infuriating that her selfish tantrum is interfering directly with your health care. Today I messed up by canceling my roommate's favorite TV show. This didn't happen today, but many years ago when I was in college. My roommate was obsessed with one particular TV show, which I was also a fan of, but he was very into it. He joined different forums and groups about it. He participated in chat rooms about it. He was obsessed. At the time, it was up in the air as to whether or not the show would be canceled. So, being an immature 19-year-old, I decided to have a little fun with it. I had recently found out about this service that would distribute anyone's article for free. Knowing that my roommate had alerts set up for everything to do with this show, I was fairly certain that if anyone was going to see what I was about to do, it would be him. I wrote up an article announcing the cancellation of the show. I started it off by making it sound very official and professional, and then deliberately threw some bizarre statements into the article, things that would never appear in any official announcement. I looked it over, sent it in, and promptly forgot about it. The next morning I got up, jumped in the shower, and started getting ready for class. I heard my roommate shout, "Oh no!" I walked back into the room and asked, "What's going on?" My roommate looked devastated. "They canceled it. They actually canceled it. They're idiots." I asked him why they had done that. He proceeded to read the rest of the article out loud. As he reached the bizarre statements, he got a confused look on his face, held his hand towards the screen and said, "What is this crap?" I burst out laughing, and my roommate realized he had been had. He shook his head. "You're a jerk. Seriously, dude? How did you even get that out there?" We had a good laugh about it. He vowed to get me back, and I went off to class. Later that day, I walked into our dorm, and my roommate had a huge grin on his face. "Congratulations, dude. You're famous," he said happily. "What did you do?" I asked. "Oh, I didn't do anything," he replied. "This is all your doing." He sent me a link and told me to open it up. The link opened up to a post on one of the fan forums of the show. The subject was the show's cancellation, and the post was a direct copy of my fake article. People were reacting with devastation and pure outrage at the network's decision to cancel the show. They had overlooked the bizarre statements and had taken the fake article as an official cancellation of the show. I couldn't believe that it had gone this far. I read page after page of devastated fans mourning the demise of their favorite show. After then, the mood shifted. The creator of the show posted on the forum after he was contacted by several fans. The post was along the lines of, "Well, I hope we're not canceled because I'm at the office and working. Now I'm fielding phone calls from my writers asking if they still have jobs." "Oh crap," I said. My roommate burst out laughing. "Oh, that's right, dude. Keep reading." As I continued to read, the tide of the comments turned from angry at the network to angry at whatever jerk decided to pull this stunt. These people were out for blood. They talked about tracking me down and getting me. This was when I learned that my roommate was far from the most devoted fan, at least he found it funny. They wrote to both the network and the show creator, encouraging them to serve paperwork on the service I used to release the article in order to find out my IP, which would have traced me to the college and likely resulted in disciplinary, if not legal action against me. I spent the next 2 months thinking I was going to get expelled or arrested. Meanwhile, my roommate just laughed at me every time I got anxious and told me it served me right. The following month, the fake article was referenced by TV Guide and is still being mentioned on both IMDb and Wikipedia pages for the show. As for me, well, I haven't spoken about this in many years, and I'm still choosing to use a throwaway because my regular account has a bit too much of me on it. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that I don't want his daughters in my apartment? I'm in a dilemma here because I know that most people will think I'm callous, but I don't think I am. Give me your honest opinion. I, female 38, met my boyfriend, male 36, at a party 4 years ago, and we hit it off immediately. I told him very early on that I'm child-free because I know that many would not be okay with this, and I don't want to lead anybody on. After a month, he told me that he had 2 kids, who are 11 and 12 now. I freaked out because I didn't know what to do. I liked him very much, but I didn't want to be a parental figure. He said I didn't have to. He has shared custody with his ex, and me and him would meet on the weeks that he doesn't have custody. Now, he basically lives at my place the weeks his daughters are with their mother. We said we loved each other very early on, and we decided this arrangement worked for us, and to break up the moment it didn't work anymore. I could see myself with him forever. I love him to bits. I love our life together. I love missing him when he's with his family. He proposed to me a month ago, and I didn't know what he meant, but he said that we didn't need to get married, he just wanted me to have a ring. I thought it was romantic. Anyway, a week later, he took his girls to my place for a weekend. His ex was sick, and he didn't want the girls to get sick too. I asked him if he maybe wanted to be with his daughters instead, but he said that he would miss me since it's our week. I said okay. I've met his girls on many occasions, and they're lovely, so I had no problems more than I felt a bit awkward. Last week I got home, and he had dropped his girls off at my apartment. They were in my closet trying on my heels and clothes. I was freaking out, so I called him. He said, "Yeah, change of plans." He and his ex switched, so the girls are staying with us. When he got home, I told him I couldn't do this. If he was having problems with our arrangement, then I understand, but I still don't want kids at my place. He called me the jerk because his girls have done nothing and are polite, etc. He loved me and we're engaged. Did I expect us to have 2 separate lives when we've been together for 4 years and love each other? I'm tired of these guys thinking I don't really mean it when I say I don't want to have kids. I love him and I do want to be with him, and I see our future when his girls are old and left the home, and we could live together and even get married. But I don't think I'm being the jerk. Yes, maybe our way is not traditional, but my love for him is no less for it. Update. I've talked to my boyfriend, fiance, and we are ending things. He's as devastated as I am, but I can't hurt him anymore. I always thought you break up when the love is gone, but now I know that's not how life works. I've been naive. He's asking for a break or to keep in touch, etc. I don't think this will work. If we're going to get over each other, I think we need to break clean. I don't know how I'll manage. God give me strength. Thank you. If anything happens to their mom, they're moving in with you permanently. Yeah, and no such thing as, I don't want to parent your kid. That's unrealistic. Kids aren't going anywhere. If it's a choice for you, OP, or kids, he will choose his kids. So I guess it's decision time for you then, OP. It's him and kids, or you move on. You're not a jerk for not wanting to parent. It's what you want, and you made it clear. But maybe the love messed up reality. But a decision will have to be made, eyes wide open. Am I the jerk for telling my son's pregnant girlfriend to get a job once she has the baby or move out? My son, Steven, who's 19, has been getting into trouble with the police for numerous small-time offenses like stealing and fighting, which resulted in him getting sent to juvie for a few months. When he came out, he had to check in with probation regularly. At the probation office, he met a girl, Lizzie, who's 21, and they hit it off. She'd just come out after a year inside. Her family are very well off, but they kicked her out, so she was living in a hostel. She was only there temporarily and had nowhere to go after that, so with my permission, Steven offered her to come and stay with us. When Lizzie first moved in, it was tough for her. She's used to quite a comfortable lifestyle and was hoping to return to one when she came out, but she settled in quickly. I gave Steven one more chance after he came home, and fair to him, he's managed to get a job laboring on a building site. Lizzie, however, has refused to get a job. Before she got arrested, she was studying for a degree and sees jobs like cleaning or admin work as beneath her. She's trying to find an entry-level job in the field she was studying, but has had no success. This is a bit of a problem, as even with me and Steven working, we only just make enough to cover the rent, food, and bills. More than once, we've had to go days without hot water. Lizzie became pregnant a few months back and decided to keep the baby, which Steven is fully supporting. I'm happy for them, but this will give us another mouth to feed. I said that as soon as the baby is born, if both mother and baby are healthy of course, I expect Lizzie to take a job, any job available. I work as a cleaner in the evenings and nights, so I'm around in the daytime to take care of the baby while Steven and Lizzie work. I told them that if Lizzie refuses, they can look for a place of their own. This made Lizzie cry and say she doesn't want to do a soul-destroying job because she used to have a bright future ahead of her. I understand this and it's unfortunate, but I've worked crappy jobs all my life, and this building site job is the first one Steven has ever had. Living where we do, crappy jobs are a part of life, and we won't be able to provide her baby with a comfortable home if she doesn't get one. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but why are you happy for them having a baby? Seriously, they're financially insecure. They both have records. Their job prospects right now are completely dim, and you're happy for them? Doesn't anyone under 25 on Am I the Jerk know how to not have kids? But on the question of whether Lizzie needs to contribute, you are not the jerk. Her best bet is to show up pregnant at her wealthy parents and beg for support. Seriously, this is her best option, which is why being happy for them is completely mental. I'm guessing I'm happy for them means, well, she's already pregnant and he already agreed to support it. So if I say I'm not happy for them, it will just upset the apple cart. So I'll agree that every baby is a blessing. Not the jerk. But to be honest, it might be best for her and the baby and for you if she did both, got a job and moved out. You're the jerk. You're a parent, and part of that job is being there for your kids no matter what. Once they have a family of their own, you're then a grandma. Stop running from your responsibilities and just be a decent human being. If you refuse to, don't be surprised when your son and his family go no contact with you. If they go no contact with her? That sounds like a good thing to me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her, you can't really say daughter-in-law, son's baby mama?
Never enable lazy, entitled people. They'll take advantage of you as long as you let them.
Am I the jerk for lying to my partner about having kids and laughing about it? So I recently became engaged to my 34 female partner who's 35 male. We met on a dating app 3 years ago and we hit it off from the start. 5 years ago, I got my fallopian tubes removed. I've known that I didn't want to give birth since I was 15 years old, and I've never changed my mind. I always said that if a kid came into my life, I'd love it, but I'm not actively seeking that out. On my dating profile, it explicitly states child-free and infertile, verbatim. At the beginning of our relationship, my now fiance regularly referenced other things I put in my profile, so I had assumed that he had read that part and kids never really came up in other convos. Well, last night he mentioned that I should consider stopping my birth control since now that we're engaged, and given our ages, we should start trying to have kids. I honestly thought he was joking and I laughed. He got frustrated and asked me why I thought it was funny, and I reminded him that the second line of my dating profile said I was infertile. He was shocked and called me a liar. I happened to remember that I sent a screenshot of my dating profile to a friend for review around that time, and I pulled up the old convo with her to show him the time and date. And that indeed it stated I was child-free. I told him I had my tubes taken out, so there was no chance of me getting pregnant without outside help. IVF is technically still an option, but I don't want to put my body through that. He stormed out, and his mom called me crying that I've ruined his life. His sister sent me a long message about how getting my tubes removed should be illegal, and how I'm a monster for stringing my fiance along. To be honest, his family never really liked me because they think I'm beneath him. A cousin told me it's because of what I look like, and I'm a career woman in a male-dominated field. Plus, we share the household labor 50-50, and I make more money than he does. Because of this, I don't take what they say too seriously, but I'm starting to feel bad. His family believes I stole years of his life and ruined future chances of being a father by lying about my fertility status. He asked for space when he stormed out, so I haven't reached out to him. I do love him, but I'm starting to have serious second thoughts given his family's reaction. I realize now that we should have talked about this before, but am I the jerk for how I handled the situation? Update. So my fiance came home this morning and I asked him if he wanted to talk. He said there was nothing left to talk about. I asked if he wanted the ring back and he just got angry. I've never seen him like this and I tried to speak calmly to him, but he was just yelling about how I was giving up and wouldn't even talk to him. I reminded him that I'd asked if he wanted to talk and he said no, to which he responded that he didn't think I'd go all crazy over a disagreement. This was a huge wake-up call for me. I asked him why he had never brought up kids beforehand and he said because he knew I would get all weird about it. I tried to get him to clarify, but he just kept saying he couldn't talk to me when I was like this. I swear I never raised my voice and tried to speak calmly the entire time. I told him I can't have kids, nor do I want any. I don't want to give birth. That seems like a deal breaker for him and his family. He said his family had nothing to do with this, and I asked why he told them then. He said because he was hoping they'd talk some sense into me. I told him I was ending the relationship and staying with my dad for the time being. This didn't go over well. I'm still kind of shaking. As I was leaving, I asked him how long he's wanted kids, and he admitted he never thought about it, but he knew I didn't want any. But now that we were engaged, it wasn't just about me, he had a say in it. I told him I physically could not get pregnant without IVF, and I asked him how he expected that to work. He responded that I didn't know what I was talking about. I left after that because I just didn't have the energy to try and convince him, and I didn't want to further agitate him. When I told my dad everything, he was furious. Apparently, when my fiance spoke to him about proposing, he didn't ask permission. Both my dad and I are opposed to that tradition, just basically letting my dad know his plans. My dad asked him if he was okay never having kids, as I'd had my tubes removed. My dad says he specifically brought it up my surgery. My fiance told my dad that it would always be my decision. I'm thankful this happened before we started any of the wedding planning, but it feels like I swallowed a boulder. I know I need to be more adamant in the future about my stance on having kids, and I promise I will have these discussions with future partners openly and from the start. I blocked his family from messaging me after they added me to a group message and started throwing Bible verses at me and saying that I'm defective for not wanting to have kids. I don't have the energy right now to be petty, so I just blocked them. My dad is going to help me move my stuff in the next couple of days. I'll talk to my landlord and figure out my lease. Thanks for all the feedback. It was helpful to understand where I went wrong. My dad got a tattoo in the style of our matching tattoo with his new family, and now I want to get mine removed. My father, 41 male, and my mother, 40 female, divorced 3 years ago. I live with my mother. My father remarried a year ago. His wife has 2 kids who are 18 and 15. Me, 18 female, and my dad got a matching tattoo 2 years ago. It was a simple outline tattoo of a photo of us. After my dad got married, things started to get a bit more distant between us because he started to spend more time with his new family. Besides that, I think he doesn't want to see me around them. I don't know why. After all, I've never treated any of them bad. Yesterday, he refused to meet me on a weekend when we were supposed to spend time together, saying he was unavailable, and he reposted a story of him hanging out with his new family. While looking at the photo, I saw that he got a new tattoo on his arm. It was an outline tattoo of a photo of him with his new family, just like the tattoo he got with me. Now, I know that millions of people have these tattoos, and it's not my original design. Still, I'm disappointed that he got a tattoo with his new family in the same style as ours, because I always thought the tattoo was special between us. Now I'm thinking of getting it covered or removed. I called my dad in the evening and asked him why he was hanging out with his family instead of meeting me. He said they planned it earlier, which doesn't make sense, because it was agreed in court after the divorce that I could spend time with my dad every weekend. So, "we planned it earlier" was a pretty BS excuse. He also knows that I'm totally okay with spending time with his family. When I told him that, he said, "It's not that simple." I guess I'm too dumb to understand complicated things because he doesn't even try to explain it. Then I asked him why he got his new tattoo in the same style as ours. He said he didn't think it would be a problem for me. I told him, "You broke something special between us. How can you not realize that? I think I'm going to get my tattoo covered. You can do the same." As a result, he thinks I'm overreacting and I shouldn't be so selfish. My mom says that what my dad did wasn't such a bad thing. She thinks we should sit down and talk. I'm not sure. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Getting a tattoo in the same style could have been a cool idea if he had talked to you first. That he didn't, then appeared to avoid you to hide it, shows that he knows it was crappy. Even if that wasn't the case, you can cover up your tattoo whenever you want to, including a previous one. But that also means you don't get to ask him to cover up his. You can hate it and tell him that, but you can't demand that he change it. Bachelorette ruined my friendship. I'm the maid of honor and organized a weekend getaway for the bride and her bridesmaids and a few friends of hers, 10 people total. None of the girls, including myself, are friends with each other outside of the bride. I had a really hard time organizing this event because in the group chat, no one would reply, and I was left high and dry for a lot of the decision making. Eventually, the same 2 girls would chime in and would offer to help. About a month ago, we made a group chat, just the 3 of us, to figure out last-minute details of the trip, since we're the only 3 really involved in the planning. The bride, from the beginning, has said she didn't want to be involved in the planning at all. Keep this in mind. Anyways, the weekend rolls around, and the bride ends up ignoring me most of the weekend. She only spends time with her other friends. I've yet to get any appreciation or thank you from her about the planning. Also, keep in mind, everyone spent around $1,500 for the Airbnb, activities, etc., while the bride paid for nothing. The last day comes and things are tense. I've hung out mostly with the other 2 girls from the group chat because they're really the only ones I've become closer with. During the bachelorette weekend, we used the group chat once to organize a surprise we had set up for the bride. We had set up decorations and a picture-taking area, a full table spread of cheeses and meats, a custom-made cake, and bride-personalized drinks, all for which she completely ignored when she saw it. The last night there, the other girls got invited to some retired hockey player's house, and the cab ride is $100 one way to get there. Considering the cost, and that it was really not my vibe, I said I'd stay back, and the other 2 girls I was with most of the time also decided to stay back. The next day when we were packing up to leave, it was really uncomfortable. No one would look at us or talk to us. I was the only one with a truck, and the other girls shoved all of their stuff in my car so that there was no room for anyone to drive with me back home, which was an 8-hour drive. We get back home, we meet at the bride's house and unload my truck. As I'm pulling out of the driveway, the bride runs up to my car and says, "I want to see your phone and messages with the group chat with the other girls." I say no, that's really uncomfortable and is invading their privacy. She said fine and walks off and says nothing to me as I leave. From what I've collected and can infer, it probably seemed like myself and the other 2 girls were cliquey. However, I personally talked with everyone else a lot, but was getting ignored by the bride. I'm at such a loss. We're adults, and I'm being asked to share my text with a group of girls that I was asked to interact with outside of the bride in order to organize her bachelorette. And now she's worried we have become friends without her? This is something I've been told explicitly. I want to pull out of the wedding for how poorly I've been treated. She's been such a horrible friend, and her asking to go through my messages has been such a breaking point for me. Edit. For those asking, she wanted to see the chat because she said that she is insecure about me talking with the other girls about her, so she wants to see what's in our group chat. I absolutely had nothing to hide. There's nothing in that group chat. But I said no and told her she can ask the other 2 girls and then can see it because it's their messages too. It was more of a matter of principle. I don't think you get ownership of your friends and should be allowed to see all their messages because you're insecure about them being friends. As well, she hadn't spoken to me the whole weekend and I was feeling very ignored. She had many opportunities to ask to go on a walk with me and talk about this, but instead she waited until I was backing out of her driveway in front of all the other bridesmaids, except the other 2 from the group chat who had already left. Also, keep in mind, it was after about an 8-hour drive and I was tired and wanted to get home. So either way, I wasn't going to sit there and have a conversation. And lastly, the whole reason we had this group chat was to plan the bachelorette because none of her friends ever replied and stuff needed to get done. And the bride has explicitly said over and over that she wanted no involvement in the planning. Update. The wedding was yesterday. I didn't go and haven't spoken to the bride since I told her I was dropping out of the wedding 2 months ago. Another bridesmaid also dropped out. The 3rd girl mentioned in the original post did go, but said she regrets not dropping out. The bride got mad at her for several other miscellaneous things in a few days prior to the wedding. I found out from the other bridesmaid that dropped out that the bride had been talking about me behind my back for the year leading up to the bachelorette and had plans to completely ghost me and cut me off after the wedding. Keep in mind, she made me her maid of honor. Big lesson learned is to listen to your gut and do what's best for you. My Karen sister refuses to help around the house, so I kicked her out. I'm female, and my sister Gina, who's 23, was left homeless after my parents cut off all financial support at the end of college. They warned her and she didn't believe them. She was living at a friend's house until she found a job, but she decided that she would go after a master's degree that doesn't start until February. I live in the city that the master's degree is in. She asked me if I could help her for a few months until she started her master's degree. She couldn't help financially with the house or anything, but she said she would help as soon as possible. I don't have such a stable condition to support another person besides my son, who's 6, but I proposed that I would pay the bills alone as long as 1. She took care of my son from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., not on Sunday, and Saturday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and 2. She cleaned the house every 3 days. Nothing too deep, just a sweep and dishwashing every day. That would save me money on babysitting and the cleaning lady who comes to my home twice a week. She didn't seem very satisfied, but that was my condition. I wouldn't support her totally like her friends do because I don't have the financial resources, and I'm only doing it because it's cheaper than hiring other people. My son likes to stay on his own, doing his own things that he likes. He just needs someone to keep an eye out for him and to make him lunch. After 2 weeks of her living here, me paying all of the bills and food, even the car which she uses a few times a week, she sat down and talked to me. Said that she accepted because of my condition, but that she was child-free for a reason, and that was precisely not having to take care of kids or to deal with them constantly. We argued about it, but I asked her to continue caring for him at least this week to give me time to hire someone else. That was on Wednesday. She agreed, and when it was Thursday, she called me saying she couldn't do it and for me to try to find someone else. I was irritated, and even more so when I saw a pile of yesterday's dirty dishes when I arrived. I told her that my condition to support her until December was for her to take care of my nephew and clean the house. She refuses to do either now, so I'm no longer interested in her staying at my home and me having more expenses, so it was better for her to move. She started saying that she would eventually pay for everything when possible and that I was using her by asking her to work without being paid properly. We argued, but I made my decision and I gave her 15 days to move. She's calling me the jerk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I think your arrangement was fair to both sides. If she can't hold up her part, then you're not under any obligation to hold up yours. Not the jerk. I wouldn't have even given her 15 days, OP. That was nice of you. She wants to use you, but doesn't want to help in any way. Your conditions were fair, but that wasn't good enough for her, so she needs to go. Not the jerk. Is there a reason she can't work and earn money? People in graduate school, heck, even undergrad, usually work. You told her your reasonable conditions and she agreed. If she's backing out now, it's reasonable for you to give her notice to find her own place and a job. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their sister? Please let us know.
Her sister sounds almost as useless as you are, Reddit boy.
Am I the jerk for not letting my husband pull $14,000 out of my account without signing a contract? I, female 36, have been married to my husband, who's 42, for 2 years. I've never been married before him, but he was married twice and has 6 kids. He requested our finances to be split. Fine by me, because seeing how he blows through his money is so frustrating. He says he has kids, commitments, and has to provide. But I don't think that kids would need that much money to live like the other kids. His bank account is almost always empty, whilst mine has over $20,000 in it. We take turns paying for daily expenses and stuff. Lately, he's been struggling with money. He borrowed from a number of people, including my own brother, about $4,000 from him just a week ago. He just seemed desperate for money. I asked what the deal was, and he said that he needed the money for the kids, which seemed fishy since kids don't really need that much money for their expenses. The eldest is 16. He came and asked to borrow $14,000 from me, pull it from my account and into his. I tried asking him what he needed the money for, but he said it was none of my business, then insisted that he'll return it ASAP. I said okay, but under the condition that he sign a contract stating he'll return the money in full. He acted all shocked and offended, then went on about how I don't trust him and his word. I told him that's all I got and this was my one and only condition. He kept ranting about how I'm refusing to help and making the situation more difficult for him instead of cooperating. I insisted on a contract to be signed before he even pulls a penny, and this morning when I told him this one more time, he blew up and said that we're family and that I should be ashamed for involving courts and lawyers between family. He left the house and was so upset he hasn't responded to any of my calls yet. Am I the jerk for standing my ground with this condition? Update. So we talked after he got home, and when I tried pressing him to tell me what he needs the money for, he gave me the same attitude and said, I don't have to worry about it. I still stood by the condition I made, and he called me useless, then stormed off to spend the night with or at God knows who. Not the jerk. Is he a gambler? He insisted that he'll return it ASAP. Sounds like he's counting on that big win. OP is not the jerk for sure. I hope she had a prenup. Husband needs help. If you could return that much money ASAP, you wouldn't need it in the first place. You would be open and honest about your time frame for repaying it. This is absolutely a gambling debt. I've been around this. The last person I had to cut from my life was this person, a friend who gambled constantly, always needed to borrow money, contingent he'd be able to pay back double as soon as possible. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't here either. 2 years sounds about right for the maximum amount of time one is able to hide something like this from another person that's close to them. OP has $20,000 in the bank and is willing to give her financially irresponsible husband $14,000 if he agrees to sign a piece of paper? Whether he signs a contract or not, there's no way she's getting that money back. I'm a lawyer. In most small claims court, you can only sue for $5,000 or maybe $10,000, and even that takes time and effort just to get the judgment. Then you have to go back to court to try and collect on the damages by garnishing wages, etc. If hubby has nothing left, then there's nothing she can go after. OP, do not loan your husband any money. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Wow, no wonder the guy's got 2 ex-wives. We'll probably have a 3rd one soon as well. Karen parks illegally, taking up 2 disabled spaces. Learns a very expensive lesson. I have a disabled parking placard, and a few weeks ago I went to Target to get some things that I needed. Not only were all the spaces taken, someone had parked their gigantic Escalade on the line between 2 disabled spaces, taking up both of them. Wholly irritated because this happens so often, I walked around the car, no placard or disabled plate. Cue the fury of someone who has to deal with this kind of stuff all the time, and cue petty revenge. I took a pic and went inside to find a manager. When I found one, I showed her the photo and she rolled her eyes and sighed. Apparently, this happens a lot at their location because it's near an affluent town with a lot of very wealthy, very entitled people, and most often it's the owners of huge SUVs and F-150s that park like jerks. She said she'd call the cops, so I decided to go back outside and hang out by the doors to watch the show. The manager joined me and we chatted while we waited for the police. The cops arrived and walked around the car, peering through the windows and running the plate. One cop took out a little book and started writing in it. They took some photos, and one came over and asked if they'd make an announcement in the store to get the driver outside. The manager radioed someone inside, and they asked them to announce the make and model and plate of the car over the PA system. A few minutes later, she came charging out of the store. Middle-aged, well-dressed woman, the common Karen of North America, and already yelling at the police. As soon as she got to her car, one of the cops held up his hand to shut her up and started lecturing her. I was too far away to hear, but she stopped yelling at least. The cop spoke to her for a few minutes, and then the other cop with the little book handed her but 2 papers. She looked absolutely insane. The cops came back over and spoke to the manager, saying that they ordered her to move her car, and if she didn't, or if she caused more problems in the store, to call them back and they'd tow the car. They told us they gave her 2 tickets, one for each space, at $500 each. Ouch. The manager thanked the police and me and went back inside. The woman stomped around a bit before getting in her car and peeling out. The cops looked at each other, then got in their cars and followed her. Pretty sure she continued to have the day that she deserved. Meanwhile, I happily treated myself to some Legos for performing a public service. All my friends think my girlfriend is creepy. Are they right? I, 22 male, started dating my girlfriend, let's call her Alice, 21 female, about 7 months ago. We met while working on a group project for one of our college classes. From the moment I met her, I felt an instant connection. She was beautiful, smart, and we shared a bunch of common interests. Long story short, we flirted for a few weeks before I finally asked her out, and we've been happily going out since. Now, here comes the problem. About a month ago, my friends and I were planning to hang out, and I invited Alice. While me and Alice are from the same hometown, we met during college, and a majority of our relationship has been during the school year. While we know each other's college friends, we had never met each other's hometown friends. I know that Alice has really bad social anxiety, so I was hesitant to invite her at first. But when I did ask her, she seemed nervous but really excited. The party seemed to go really well. Alice was smiling and laughing the whole time and even got to go on a rant about a topic she really liked. When it was over, she even told me while I was taking her home how much she liked my friends. When I asked my friends what they thought of Alice, they all said she seemed nice, all except my best friend, Ruben, who's 22. When I asked him, he told me that he couldn't stand her. I immediately questioned why, hoping it was them not mixing well, as I can acknowledge that Ruben and Alice are complete opposites when it comes to interests and personality. But Ruben told me he couldn't stand her because of how creepy she is, and I was better off dumping her. Now this threw me off, as I had never once considered Alice creepy. She's actually the cutest girl I'd ever met, and I've never felt more comfortable around someone than I do around her. Before I could even ask what he meant, he went off on a rant about how uncomfortable she made him feel and started citing stories I told him about our dates during college. Stuff like how she'd stare at me without saying anything and just enjoyed looking at me. How she eats the same meal whenever we go out to dinner. How unjealous she was when a girl came up and flirted with me. Or about her deep knowledge of mysteries and true crime. Both of which she could talk about for hours, but neither of which she actually talked about at the party. He said that while he wrote them off before, since they didn't seem to bother me, which they don't, but that after meeting her in person and seeing how weird and flighty she was, he can tell that she's a secret psycho and will end up either breaking my heart or just hurting me. I tried to explain to him how any weirdness was probably because she was so nervous about meeting them for the first time, but he insisted that we've had friends' significant others have anxiety before and that she was just plain weird. I blew him off at first because he sounded crazy. Alice isn't perfect, but she's far from creepy. But after 2 weeks of him telling me to dump her and me getting tired of telling him to drop it, I reached out to a few of our friends to prove him wrong. But to my surprise, they all agreed that Alice was creepy. Most of them said the way she spoke really threw them off, which is fair since Alice can be weirdly formal sometimes, but I didn't notice her doing that at the party at all, and typically it's much more funny than unsettling. Most of my friends told me it wasn't enough to break up with her since they still genuinely found her sweet and fun to be around, but I did have one friend say that it was worth breaking up over and he was just too embarrassed to tell me at first. I have no plans of breaking up with Alice because all the stuff they're calling creepy I find cute when she does it. But are they right? Is it creepy that she does that stuff? Should I talk to her about it? Should I tell my friends to buzz off and ignore their concerns? I feel bad for even questioning about this, but with all of my friends agreeing, it's starting to gnaw at me, and I just need some clarification if it's actually creepy or if they're just being dramatic. Update. Since I posted originally, I spoke with each of my friends individually, and I talked to them about what they said. Pretty much all of them apologized, and some even offered to apologize to Alice herself, which at the time I said no since I didn't really want them interacting with her. But we'll get back to that later. The only one who didn't apologize, as I'm sure you guessed, was Ruben. I want to address some comments suggesting that Ruben could either be attracted to me or maybe even Alice. I don't think either of those are true, as Alice is the first girlfriend Ruben has ever acted like this with, even though I've dated plenty of girls, and Alice isn't his usual type. He may still be attracted to her. I mean, she is gorgeous, but I've known the guy since 3rd grade, and so I know he's pretty picky about the girls he's into. So I don't think that's the case. I think he's just a major jerk. I've known Ruben literally my whole life, since our moms were college friends and moved close to each other when we were young. With so much history, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt by just asking him to drop it, since I really didn't care if he found her creepy. I really like her, and he'd just have to deal with it if he wanted to continue being friends. He didn't apologize or even say he was wrong, but he did agree to stop commenting on it, which isn't perfect, but it works for now, as I consider if I really want to continue being friends with him. Yesterday, I met up with Alice for a casual date. It wasn't anything fancy, just a home picnic. I have really bad allergies, so we couldn't do it outside. We had some candles and our favorite foods, and we watched movies and dissected our favorite tropes. About halfway through our 3rd movie, Alice brought up Ruben since she heard about an upcoming car show and auction her dad told her about, and she remembered me saying that he loved vintage cars and suggested the 3 of us and a friend of hers who was also into cars could go together so she could get to know him better. It felt crazy that she had suggested this days after mine and Ruben's fight, and it made me feel sick with how sweet she was being to a jerk. I gave her some weak excuses about how she hates car shows and doesn't have to do that, or how Ruben wouldn't be comfortable doing that. My girlfriend, being the angel she was, said she could tough through it, Or even just let me and Ruben go together if he wasn't comfortable with her yet, or she'd even pay for the tickets because it was a private showing. This was the point I broke, and I told her everything that happened. She took it really well, just calmly listening while I rambled through my explanation, and she even apologized to me about weirding out my friends. I tried to explain it wasn't her fault and she didn't need to apologize. As a lot of you suspected, she ended up telling me how she believed she was autistic, but since she hadn't gotten an official diagnosis, she wasn't comfortable telling people that. After a lot of guilty back and forth between the two of us, she told me she didn't want me cutting off my friends since they did apologize and didn't say anything cruel, just pointed out her neurodivergent tendencies, which is not an insult to her. But I put my foot down that I for sure won't be bringing her around Ruben anymore, and I plan to distance myself from him and my other friends for the time being, which she agreed was fair. She also wants to meet up with my friends who want to apologize to her since they seem genuine in their regret. Overall, things turned out pretty well, and thank you so much for your input. Anyone else think that Ruben was talking to the other friends about Alice? Just seems to me that if they were all okay with her at first, and then later agreed with the creepy description, that maybe someone's been in their ears, reframing any of her personal quirks. Alice sounds like a stand-up girl, and she seems really sweet. OP might have just found the perfect one. On a side note, OP's friends really feel nitpicky, especially Ruben. I have a feeling Ruben is jealous about the two of them, but who really knows? I found something my ex-husband accused me of destroying, and I returned it. My marriage, we were both in our 30s, this is important, had problems right away. One of the manifestations was him going off on me for not going to an elite university. I went to a very good undergrad and an even better grad school. Had not finished at that point, but he went to one of the best schools in the country, known for graduates with a chip on their shoulder. That was really all he had on me, and I would just laugh. Even his parents told him he was being a jerk and sounded like an idiot because I had an impressive education, something I had never felt the need to discuss before. So anyway, he became really competitive about his college, and especially his friends from college. Very few he was still in touch with. This was before Facebook. And he had this photo box full of memorabilia. Cardboard, no lock or anything. I had a dozen or so myself. A normal thing would be to go through his and mine together and share memories and stories and bond. I didn't really care about what was in his box, and college stories are boring when you weren't there, but I would have listened. But the box became a symbol of everything wrong, with him constantly saying I'm not good enough for his college friends. At some point, he forbid me to look in the box. Of course, I didn't take this well. He kept telling me I wasn't good enough to see what was in the box. It got brought up in every fight, like a death spiral of, "You're jealous of my friends. Your friends suck and I wouldn't like them anyway." Fast forward through years of fighting. We moved on to more spectacular fights, and the box fell pretty far down the list. Then for some reason one day he went up to the attic and couldn't find his box. He said I threw it away because I was jealous and petty. I didn't, but after a few years of this, he managed to convince me that maybe I did. "And you threw away my box," went back into heavy rotation. I begged his forgiveness and fell into deeper depression over the depths to which my life had sunk. Finally got a divorce. Cops, ROs, the whole nine. I healed and moved on. Years later, I sold my house. It was mine before, and when I was packing up, I found the box. I had such an emotional reaction, my legs buckled. I sat on the floor and wept. My boyfriend was really sweet about it. He didn't know about the box. It's so ridiculous, and I was so ashamed, but mostly I had put it all behind me by then, until it all came rushing back. I called a mutual friend and asked him to come get the box so they could give it to him. People suggested I should throw it away out of spite, but I had something to prove. Before I turned it over, I put copies of 2 unpublished essays I wrote about what he did to me, along with a handwritten note. I sold your Dungeons & Dragons books. I just found out that my husband was married when we started dating and had our baby. My husband and I just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. We have a kid together. Long story short, I recently found out that my husband was not only married when we started dating, but his divorce wasn't actually finalized until our son was almost 6 months old. I know this story sounds weird, but 6 years ago I started dating this guy. He was from somewhere else, but he was in my town for a year-long military assignment. He told me he had a horrible ex-wife who cheated on him for over half of their 10-year-long marriage. I felt so bad for him, and all of his friends and family members corroborated his story and told me how great he was and how awful she was, etc. This guy moved in with me very quickly, because his room on base was disgusting and moldy, and despite being on the Nuva ring, I ended up getting pregnant, and he proposed a few months later. It all happened super fast, but I was wildly in love, and I didn't think anything was wrong with my happy little family until one day, out of the total blue, I received a Facebook message from his ex-wife, calling me a homewrecker and calling my newborn son names. I was so confused. This guy was definitely not married when we started dating, or so I thought. I never replied to her message, but I confronted my then fiancé about it, and he assured me that she's crazy and she's the one who had cheated on him, etc. Again, all his friends and his mother verified his story, saying his ex-wife was the cheater and their marriage was 100% over when he and I got together. So anyway, flash forward to a couple of months ago. Hubby and I just celebrated 4 years of marriage, and I thought everything was great. I loved the life that we had built together, and I had entirely forgotten about the ex-wife thing. One day, out of the total blue, I had this weird feeling that I should check her Facebook page. Again, it had been years since I had even thought about this woman, and I have no idea what compelled me to check her page. So anyways, I went to go check it, and several months before, she had written this awful, scathing post about me, calling me and my son all kinds of names, and saying that soon my husband is going to do to me what he did to her, because he's a narcissist who doesn't care who he hurts. I sent her a message saying I was so sorry that she misunderstood what happened, but I was certainly not a homewrecker, and my precious son is definitely not the name she was calling him, and I asked her to please take down the post. She responded, "No, leave me alone." And I said, "I'm not super inclined to do that unless you remove the post." Again, I'm so sorry for any misunderstanding, but he and I didn't start dating until this date. Much to my shock and dismay, she replied with lots and lots of proof that they were indeed still married at that time. I started digging and found his divorce record. It does say that he was not legally divorced until our son was nearly 6 months old. I guess I now understand why he wanted a 2-year-long engagement. So anyway, what do I do with this info now? If I confront him about it, he will obviously know the info came from her and he'll be angry with me for messaging her. I've been trying to pretend like I don't know and that everything is fine, but it's eating me up. He has obviously lied to me about this before, repeatedly and to my face, so if I confront him, I feel like he's going to lie again. I now know that I can't trust him. I don't think he's lied to me about anything else, but if he would lie about this, what else would he lie about? This is a big lie. I do now worry that he will do the same thing to me, like his ex-wife's post said. I do also think there could be, and probably is, a lot more to the story. Maybe she did cheat first. I don't know. But even if she did, and even if him getting with me was retaliation for her actions, I'm not at all sure that would be enough for me to trust him again moving forward. This is just over, right? I don't know how to get past all of this. I've always told my friends to never date a cheater because how you get them is how you lose them. Tell him in a public place that you found out he was still married when you got together, and if there's anything he can tell you that might make you trust him again, now's the time. If his reaction is to get angry with you or to argue with you or otherwise deflect, then you should take that as a confirmation that he has no defense for what he did. You don't have to sit there and argue with him or defend yourself. Nothing you did is worse than what he did. You don't have to convince him of that. You just have to stand up and leave and move forward with your own plans, which should include prioritizing your kid and getting a good lawyer ASAP. You should also be prepared for the possibility that he may just lie. If he starts offering some sob story to justify his actions, listen to your gut. Don't tell yourself to just accept a story that doesn't feel right or doesn't make you feel secure or doesn't totally make sense. I'm sorry you're going through this. Good luck. He lied to you, and so did his family. Big lies. You need a job and your own savings account in a bank he doesn't have access to. You should be prepared. Question: was he legally divorced when you got married? Before you confront him, I would seriously consider speaking with a divorce attorney. You want to make sure you're fully protected, and the best time to do that is before the other party is aware you know of their lies. I would also speak with my attorney about the conversation with the ex-wife and turn over copies of that conversation for them to hang on to so it can be deleted off your devices. You don't want him to snoop through your accounts, find something, and angrily take it out on you. Well, what do you think? Should OP divorce her husband or not? Please let us know. Oh, I'm on private property? I used to work for a supermarket chain, and quite often I'd be asked by management to work at other locations. Most of the time this wasn't a big deal. I was happy to help out. It gave me an excuse to drive and have the petrol paid for. However, one day I was asked to work at a location very far away at the very early hour of the morning. I initially refused on the grounds that I would have to wake up at around 2 a.m. in order to have a shower, breakfast, and drive to be there on site at 5 a.m. After some arm bending from management, I finally relented and begrudgingly agreed I would do it. Due to the drive not taking nearly as long as I initially expected, I arrived on location at about 4:30 a.m. I waited in my car with the music playing. At 4:50 a.m., I get a loud knock on my car window, nearly making me jump out of my skin. It was the manager for that store, who, never seen me before, didn't know who I was. The conversation went as follows. Manager: "You need to leave. This is private property." Me: "Oh, but," interrupting me, "I don't care. Go, now." Me, quickly realizing I can play this to my advantage. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I don't want any problems. Of course, I'll go. Right away. Sorry." As per his request, I drove home with a smile on my face, knowing that I have the rest of the day free to myself. A few hours later, I get a phone call. I answer the unrecognized number, and I recognize the voice immediately. It was the manager who told me to leave. Manager: "Hello, I'm looking for OP." Me: "Hi, yeah, that's me." Manager: "This is management calling from the store. I was expecting you to work with me today. You should have been here at 5 a.m. Me, trying to sound casual: "Yeah, I was there waiting in my car. You told me to leave, remember?" "But you didn't say—" I interrupt him. There's no ifs or buts. I was on private property and was asked to leave. I was legally obliged to do so. "Yeah, but don't you think—" It doesn't matter what I thought. I was asked to leave private property. I'm not going to break the law and risk getting into trouble with the police. It was at this point he hung up on me. I expected to get in trouble for what had happened, but I never heard anything more about it. This was a few years back now, too. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. I hope you enjoyed it. Am I the jerk for demanding my husband quit his job? A year ago, my husband got a really great job. He loves it. It more than doubled our income. The problem is he's never here. It requires a lot of travel, and he's gone more of the month than he's home. We have 3 kids who are 8, 6, and 3. We have 2 dogs. I am run ragged. I don't have any family to help me. I don't have time for friends. It's never ending. Cleaning, kids, cooking, dogs, school, cooking. No time for me whatsoever. Before my husband got this job, we worked opposite schedules. I worked in a restaurant/bar in the evenings. Didn't pay great, but a couple really good friends worked there with me. It was how I socialized. Now that he's gone, I couldn't work that job since nobody watches the kids at night. Now I work a part-time retail job that I hate with coworkers who are essentially kids compared to me. I don't get to socialize like I used to. I only work the hours my kids are in school. But we have after-school activities, homework, dogs, dinner, never-ending chores, etc. There's no time for me. I don't even get to sleep alone since my 6-year-old has night terrors. When my husband was here, things felt more divided. I still did a lot during the day, but it wasn't never-ending. There would still be days I didn't have to worry about lunches or bath time or homework because my husband would pick up the slack. I could go out with friends from time to time. Don't even get me started on what it's like when the kids get sick, and then I inevitably get sick too. It's absolute misery, and he's not around to see it. I'm left drowning. But he doesn't want to quit. He loves his job, and that's fair. I can see he's way happier now. But what about me? Don't I matter? I don't know how I'm supposed to get through this. I demanded for the sake of my sanity he quit his job, but he exploded. He thinks we're doing better than ever. We could get a bigger house soon. We live in a 2-bedroom rancher, but I like it. That the kids will have so many more opportunities, etc. And he's not wrong. But what about me? Am I the jerk? Update. I just got off the phone with my husband. We talked for a while. Naturally, he's quite upset and is rather defensive, but he is very sorry. That's not an easy thing for him to say, yet he said it very clearly multiple times. He's going to try to catch a flight home tomorrow. He's going to take a week or 2 off work to help me get some things set up in place for me, help around the house, and some babysitting. He encouraged me to take some time off work as well and to just stop thinking about finances for right now. He said he'll deal with it for a while. He says whenever I go back to work, it won't be like it was. He will help me. He'll make sure I have some extra money and extra time. I would cry with relief. I am crying with relief. If income is doubled, it's time for some hired help. Why not hire childcare and/or cleaning services a couple of evenings a week? No jerks here. But hire regular house cleaners, order a meal kit subscription service, work smarter, not harder, hire a babysitter from time to time, and meet with friends. Yeah, of course he loves it. His responsibilities just got halved. Quit the job, then you'll have time for you. He doesn't want to quit, then you quit. If you're doing better than ever, then he can afford to get you a babysitter from time to time while you go out for an actual social life. Or you can have somebody come in every week or two to at least help you keep your home in order and at least take a little off your plate of responsibilities. Not the jerk. You're the jerk. How about you two switch it up? You could go earn a high income to provide for the family and let hubby stay home with the kids. Something tells me he'd be able to get them to school on time and vacuum the house here and there since it's just too much for you to handle. And you gotta love these idiots that always say to hire help. These stay-at-home moms who complain on Reddit don't need hired help. They just need to stop so much TV and wasting time on Facebook. Well, what do you think? Should OP's husband quit his job or not? Please let us know. The old bait and switch. Once upon a time, I, like many people after the new year, joined Planet Fitness with my girlfriend, now wife. We did not go to the gym, and this continued now that we had a gym membership. After a year or so had gone by of not going to the gym, we decided to go in one day just for something to do. They wouldn't let us in due to the card that we used for my wife's membership had expired, and our account was due over $100. They agreed that we could go in as long as we got it under $100. We paid the remaining amount and canceled her membership, switching mine to a premium membership so that we could both get on using mine. After probably another year of them collecting my money for little in return, I joined the army as a way to escape the ever-rising cost of family health insurance. I thought, this is great. Now I have a reason to work out, and I'll use my Planet Fitness premium membership that lets me use any of their gyms around the country. However, upon moving to our first duty station, I found that 1. I worked out every morning with a group of people outside, and 2. There are several gyms on base, usually nicer than Planet Fitness. So I went to cancel my membership, and here's where they really upset me. Oh, you have to cancel in person at your home gym, or by writing a cancellation letter via first-class mail to your home gym. The problem being that my home gym was over 700 miles away, and I didn't want to wait long enough for them to get the letter and process it. I left and began my Planet Fitness contract research. Armed with knowledge, I returned to the closest store the next day. Good morning, sir. Oh, good morning. Can you help me out? I don't necessarily want to pay for the black membership anymore, but my home gym is in Ohio. Can I change my home gym to this one? Of course, sir. I'd be happy to assist you. Once all the exchanging of information had been completed, I dropped the bomb. Is there anything else I can help you with? Yes. Actually, since this is my home gym now, I'd like to go ahead and cancel my membership. Her jaw actually dropped. She called a manager to give the overrides or whatever he needed to do. He got the whole story, looked at me, and said that I would have to wait 24 hours since I just changed my home gym. I obliged his request and came back the next day. I'm happy to say that it's been almost 5 years since my last gym membership. Am I the jerk for telling my stepsister it's not my fault my dad doesn't love her? I'm 24, female. My dad is married to a woman I'll call Melissa, and they've been married for 13 years. Melissa has a daughter, Sarah, who's 25. I didn't live with my dad full-time growing up. My parents had shared custody, but it was pretty flexible, so I'd spend on average 2 nights there a week, and my dad would normally take me to dinner 1 evening a week. I have never had much of a relationship with Melissa, but we've always been friendly. Sarah, on the other hand, has always been jealous of me and my relationship with my dad. Anything I was doing, she wanted to do. Anywhere I was going with my dad, she wanted to come along. My dad always handled it, but I was always aware that she was clearly unhappy when I was around. My dad and I spoke about this more than once, and my dad expressed that he found Sarah always expecting things from him a bit stressful, and that he had brought it up with Melissa, but it didn't seem to help. I haven't seen Sarah much in the last few years since I moved away, but I recently got engaged, so my fiancé and I had dinner with my dad, Melissa, Sarah, and her fiancé to celebrate. My dad made a toast and said he'd like to pay for the wedding. He then presented us with a check. I thanked him, but said we will be paying for the wedding ourselves. My dad said he wanted to contribute to our lives in some way, and my fiancé suggested we could put the money into a trust for our future kid. We then continued on with dinner. The next day, I got a call from Sarah, who said I should split the money my dad gave me for the wedding with her. I was confused and asked why, and Sarah said that my dad is a father figure to both of us. I told her if my dad wanted to give her money, he would have, and that it has nothing to do with me. Sarah started getting mad and said that I should share the money since I didn't need it. She went off on me, called me mean, spoiled, a gold digger, all sorts. She then said that it was my fault she never had a dad and I need to share the money and admit that my dad is her dad too. I was just getting so annoyed and I said, "It's not my fault he doesn't love you. If you want money from him, go ask him," and I hung up on her. I guess she did ask him because my dad called and got mad at me for blowing up on her, saying I didn't have to be that harsh with her. He said it's caused a lot of drama between him and Melissa and Sarah. He said I didn't have to respond to Sarah's goading, and maybe that's true, but I don't think I'm the jerk for saying what he was too scared to, especially when I was being blamed for something that has nothing to do with me. Not the jerk. Your stepsister clearly has some issues that are no one's responsibility but hers. I hope for the sake of her fiance and future kids that she deals with them. I'm also amused that she called you a gold digger when she was the one who called you up and demanded you give her money. As for your father's troubles, this is something that he should have nipped in the bud a long time ago. I don't know where Sarah's father is or if he's alive, but it was never realistic on her part to expect your father to take his place, and that should have been made clear to her from the beginning. Maybe she should have been in therapy or something. Am I the jerk for shutting off my fiance's computer while he was playing his video games in my son's room at 1:30 in the morning? When we moved back to my family's house about a year ago, my fiance set up his gaming PC station in my elementary school age son's room since we have such a limited amount of space. He's not my son's biological father. My fiance and I have a baby and who sleeps in our room, so there's literally no space at all in our bedroom. I agreed to let him have his computer and desk in my son's room as it was the only room out of the two with just enough space. My fiance has always claimed that gaming stops him from going out to bars or spending extra money we don't have. Since moving back, I stressed to him that I don't want him to play late at night because I don't want him to disrupt my son's sleep and affect his circadian rhythm. Over the past year, my fiance hasn't respected my request as he's continued to play video games till pretty late at night, sometimes up to 4 a.m. on weekends. Whenever I bring it up to my fiance, my son always insists that he doesn't mind that my fiance is playing games in his room. My son probably enjoys the company, but he also makes a pillow wall around his face to block the bright lights every night. It bothers me since I know my son could be getting a better night's sleep without a mouse and keyboard clicking away with constant bright flashing lights from the computer monitor. About a month ago, I caught my fiance vaping in my son's room while playing video games while my son was asleep. I lost my marbles at my fiance and told him how he doesn't give a crap about my son's health or sleep. He claimed he doesn't believe in circadian rhythm. I made a very big deal out of this and gave him an ultimatum that he needed to stop gaming late at night and to never vape in my son's room again, or we're done. He promised to stop and has been pretty consistent by stopping at 10 p.m. and not vaping that I'm aware of. Well, last night I heard mumbling from my son's room, which woke me up around 1:30 a.m. and it brought rage to me. I demanded that my fiance get off his game, and he said he was almost done, just 20 more minutes until the match was over. I told him to get out of my son's room or I would be turning off the computer. I ended up pushing the power button to turn it off. Am I the jerk for turning off my fiance's computer during his match? I know my son claims he doesn't care that my fiance plays in his room. As his mom, I want my son to get a good night's rest. Additionally, my fiance never wakes up early to help me out with our kid and sleeps until 10:30 a.m. or later every single weekend. Edit. Fiance saw this post. He is actively packing his stuff and leaving. Not the jerk on that occasion, but you are the jerk for ever allowing him in your son's room to play video games all night and disturb your son. Plus the vaping? What? He's not even his dad. I ditched the guy pronto. Your kid deserves better. Not the jerk. Why are you staying with this man? He has to play video games or he'll spend all the money and go out to the bar? Nope. Either he pulls his head out of his rear and behaves like a responsible adult who respects you and your kids, or he finds a new place to live. Those are his options. OP. I don't know why I'm staying anymore. I feel miserable and do 90% of all parenting and of all the cooking and cleaning, etc. Video game addictions are real. He really needs help. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiance? Please let us know. What a disrespectful dude. Glad to hear he hit the road. Stop blaming the person I'm training for the rookie mistakes he's been making? Very well. I used to work as a temp in a cardboard factory. I started out assisting the machine operators in their work, But after the person who managed the materials, cutting forms, printing stamps, and ink, who henceforth shall be referred to as Dave, was forced to take a week off, paid vacation he was forced to take before the end of the year, and the end of the year rush was coming up, and things went south because the floor managers couldn't keep up with his job and their own at the same time, the company decided we needed a second person to do Dave's job to avoid situations like that in the future. They tested several people by having them work together with Dave for a couple of hours, and apparently I was the only one who did a decent job, and so I was told that Dave would be training me. I was never asked if I was interested. I didn't even know they were looking for someone to help Dave until I arrived at work one Monday and my schedule said I would be working with Dave. Of course, I didn't mind, because since I was already capable of helping operate 8 of the 10 machines in the factory, I figured this was a great way to further solidify an actual contract with the company. Now, during his week off, Dave had met a woman and they had started dating. She would constantly text him while he was at work, and it showed in his productivity. Of course, COO figured his drop in productivity was because I was slowing him down. As time went on, Dave's girlfriend moved in with him. Now, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the factory had a 2-shift system, early shift and late shift. Most of us worked in rotating shifts, but Dave had a fixed early shift because he had to be there on Monday mornings. Now, this meant Dave and his girlfriend could never go out on weekends and even had to go to bed quite early. So Dave requested to be put back on rotating shifts once he had finished training me. The COO said he would look into it, but kept giving Dave excuses. So Dave started interviewing for another job. Then came the day me and Dave were called into the COO's office and got yelled at for not pulling our weight and stuff like that. One of the things mentioned was repeated tardiness. Dave couldn't deny that one. He had overslept several times in the last few months, but I had only been tardy once because of a flat tire. So wanting to set the record straight, I tried to interject about my flat tire, and the COO snapped at me to keep my trap shut while he's talking. So after his rant and he dismisses us from his office, I once again bring up the flat tire, and then he just snaps at me again that I should have just avoided having a flat tire. That was the last drop for Dave. He got home, wrote his letter of resignation, mailed it to the COO, and accepted one of the job offers he had gotten that week. For the next 3 months, I'm stuck doing all the work on my own. Also during this time, due to a change in the laws in my country, I might become homeless unless I get a contract. So I start asking the COO for a contract, since I've been there 2.5 years as a temp at this point. Just like with Dave, he keeps giving me excuses. After an incident with them refusing any vacation time request I put in that included a Monday, they finally gave me someone to train to be my second. Let's call him Abdul. About a month after I started training Abdul, I get called into the floor manager's office. Apparently, a mistake was made somewhere, and he asks me how it happened. Now that was the first week I was letting Abdul work independently without me constantly telling him what to do. So I tell the floor manager that Abdul had done that job and I had not yet had the chance to inspect his work. The manager grumbles but just dismisses me. A week later, I get called in again for a similar situation. So after I point out that Abdul is learning and mistakes will be made. So this time, the manager blows up at me that I have to stop blaming everything on Abdul, and if I blame one more mistake on Abdul being a rookie, he's getting me fired. This is where the compliance comes in. Around this time, me and Abdul were put in opposing shifts. My first order of business every day would be to double check all of Abdul's work and fix any mistakes. I couldn't inform him of his mistakes, so he kept making them. Abdul also started to get sneaky. You see, part of our tasks had to be done in an area of the factory where only the 2 of us would frequently go. So Abdul would do all of the work that was to be done where people could see him work, leaving me with all the tasks behind the scenes, meaning I was never anywhere to be found. We also had these big barrels of ink, which were hooked up to a machine that mixed the basic colors of ink into other colors. Abdul had always refused to change these barrels when they were empty. He would usually state he hadn't had time, even though making sure those barrels aren't empty was a priority job. This eventually all culminates into a moment about 8 months after Dave left, where I am once again called into the COO's office. I'm thinking I'm finally getting my contract after 3 years as a temp. I'm also convinced Abdul got a contract the week before, though Abdul and the COO have always denied that. Instead, I'm told I'm fired. The COO also goes out of his way to inform me that he's been wanting to fire me for 6 months now because he blames me for Dave quitting, but was asked not to by the floor managers until I had trained someone to replace me, and they considered Abdul to be ready to do the job now. He also told me that he did appreciate the work I did. He just had a problem with me personally. After my meeting with the COO, I make my round of the factory to inform my coworkers that I've been fired and to say goodbye. The look on Abdul's face was pure panic. He suddenly realized that despite me demonstrating how to change those ink barrels, he had never actually done it himself, and as such, didn't remember how to do it. A week after I left, I got a message from one of my former coworkers that the entire factory was looking to go to the COO's office and demand they rehire me, because Abdul was not only doing a poor job, but he was also being a megalomaniac. I told her not to bother, because if they did rehire me, it would only make the COO hate me even more. Several months after, another former coworker informed me that not even a month after I was fired, Abdul was demoted back to assistant machine operator, and one of the floor managers had to take over his tasks full-time. My Karen ex kicked me out of our house, and we have a 4-month-old baby together. I'm really just looking for any words of advice, consolation, or even a reality check. I'm so torn up right now, and the sadness is eating me alive. We've been together for just over 2 years now. We found out she was pregnant 1 year into our relationship, and after so much back and forth on both parts, we decided to keep the baby. The baby was born 4 months ago, and he's the biggest joy in our lives. I love him with all of my heart, and my partner, well, my ex, does too. And I'm so happy that she's the mother of my baby because I love so much about her, from her beauty and her likes and her dislikes to her imperfections, but most of all, the way that she cares for our baby. I work more than full-time in order to pay our rent, groceries, leisure, clothing, etc. for her, the baby, and myself. I'm working extremely hard to provide her with the ability to be a stay-at-home mother in one of the most esteemed cities in Southern California. I do this because I've assumed the financial responsibility of parenting, and I seek to give the mother the best possible, stress-free life with the ability to be 100% present and available during such a tender time for the both of them. She had been mentioning how she fell out of love with me and didn't feel as romantically engaged in me as before. I tried suggesting this could be due to hormonal changes after giving birth to the baby, while still acknowledging her feelings. The first couple of months after birth, our love life was active and she was deeply in love with me, or so I thought. Things started to decline as I came back to work and was less present around the house. I really wanted to try to raise my son with my partner in the same household. We tried therapy, did a few sessions over the span of 1.5 months, had some insight into our situation, but no resolution yet. It came to the point where she told me that she was completely out of love with me and done trying, that she appreciated all the financial support and how good I am with our baby, but that I lacked the emotional space for her and the baby, which breaks my heart. She told me that she likes nothing about me and actually despises who I am, and that it was a mistake to have a baby with me. She expresses how she is completely romantically detached from me and how she wants to find romance and love again, and that it can't work with me in the picture. She had been consciously keeping my baby away from my parents, his grandparents. They only got to hold him once or twice after he was born. She keeps the baby away from her own mother. She's an elementary school tutor. Meanwhile, my partner's father is home with her every day, caring for our baby while I'm at work, and he's even spending the night at our house. Her father is well-abled, retired, jobless, lives off Social Security, but too prideful to work consistent jobs. Therefore, he has no home or rental. He lived out of a cheap motel until they found that I could house him for free. I'm grateful of how he's able to be present to help my partner get sleep and look after the baby while I'm away, working for the family. Both of them know this. Everything hit the fan after I was told that I needed to pay for my partner to have a running car that was up to date with insurance and registration. I have 2 cars and only drive one daily. Her having a car is a given to me, and I was not trying to hold back this necessity, but they basically forced me into a situation where I had to sell my work vehicle in order to pay for her car, over $2,000, to get her back on the road. I didn't see her car as high priority, considering her father was living with her and was driving her into town every day, and I picked her and our baby up after work daily. I asked if there was any way that I could have some help in this situation, perhaps from her father, and that my work vehicle greatly facilitated my work life. She took this as me not being willing to sell my car and me not wanting her to have a working car. She walked out to her father, who came back angry and aggressive, asking me why I always push back to stop getting in the way of everything and do what his daughter says. I simply told him I have no problem in getting her car up and running and that I misunderstood just how high priority it was, considering the situation. He told me I had to grow up and got extremely aggressive towards me. Her seeing her father in this state really triggered her, as she views him in a very good light and almost whatever he says goes in her mind. I was then kicked out of my own home on the premise that she needed 3 nights of space and this relationship wasn't working. It has since been 2 nights. She let me see my son for 30 minutes yesterday. Half of the time he was sleeping. The other half I was trying to spend talking to her. We were in a busy environment and didn't get anywhere. She hears what I have to say, but has no feelings or empathy for me. She says we will do 3 more nights and then we'll see. I'm now kicked out of my house, living on friends' couches, while her and her father are living in the 2-bedroom space with 4 beds that I have paid for nearly 12 months. I can't believe this is my reality, and I'm absolutely devastated that I can't be with our baby or sleep under the same roof as them. As a father and protector, this is my biggest nightmare. Somebody please give me insight. Get a lawyer ASAP. Look into what rights you have in your area and get everything you need in order to be in your kid's life. Do not move out. She has the upper hand then. She can't keep the baby from you, and that's their home and yours. If you leave voluntarily, she just gets that space to herself. Her dad doesn't seem stable to have around. Write everything down and start communicating via email. Bro, why are you even here? Everyone is explaining to you that you're being a doormat, and your response is, "But I like being a doormat." Then continue being a doormat, but don't pretend like you're asking for advice on how to not be one. What have you left out? This doesn't add up at all. She sounds like something triggered her. You're getting the advice you need and have an excuse for everything. You need to start acting on your own terms. This will only get worse because you're allowing yourself to be a punching bag. Is there more to this story? I'd sure like to hear her unvarnished side of the story. Something is missing from this version. I'm trying to support OP, but he's rejecting all ideas while making it seem like the woman he wanted to have his baby with woke up one day hating him out of nowhere. Wow, you really messed up having a kid with her. Similar situations have happened to my brother, my dad, my best friend, my cousin, and none of them were ever the same. Stories like this reassure me that I made the right decision by not having kids with any of my exes, even though they all tried to convince me to. Every one of them turned out to be the most vindictive, toxic people I had ever known. If only I could have been born 100 years ago. Not having internet or AC would have been a small price to pay for the chance at marrying a loyal and loving person. Am I the jerk for making my husband leave a wedding reception with me? My husband, 34 male, and I, 32 female, have been married for 8 years and we have 2 kids who are 6 and 4. I'm currently 7 months pregnant with our 3rd. This has been by far my worst pregnancy. Overall, health-wise, me and the baby are fine, no major issues. But the general fatigue and discomfort of being pregnant while also having 2 other kids to take care of is wearing on me. I've also had more nausea and terrible heartburn. As a result of me being tired literally all the time, my husband has had to take on a lot of additional household and childcare duties. He's been great about it, and things are still running smoothly, even though I can do about 1/3 of the household and kid stuff that I usually did. This past weekend, we attended a wedding for one of my friends from college. My husband knows a lot of people in this friend group, and he was really looking forward to some adult social interaction. The wedding was a 3-hour drive from our place, so he got his parents to babysit and booked a hotel so we wouldn't have to drive home and we could enjoy the reception. I felt fine all day up until halfway through the reception. It was like I hit a wall energy-wise and started getting terrible heartburn. My husband was off mingling with people while I pretty much just sat at the table for over an hour talking with whoever came by to say hi. My husband came over to check on me and I told him I wasn't feeling well and I wanted to leave. He asked if I would be comfortable taking the shuttle back to the hotel by myself so that he could stick around and keep socializing. I told him I want him to come back to the room with me in case I start feeling worse so that he can take care of me. He didn't protest or argue with me, but he did give a big sigh in the, okay, fine kind of way. When we got back to the room, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep immediately. He was short with me all morning as we were getting ready to leave. A lot of one-word answers kind of stuff. On the way home, I asked him what his deal was, and he said he's frustrated that I made him go back to the room with me, only for me to fall asleep. He said if he knew I was just going to fall asleep, he would have stayed at the reception for longer. He said this was the first social interaction he's had in months, and with the new baby coming, will probably be his last social interaction like that for months again. I told him that I didn't make him come back with me. I just told him I wanted him to in case I felt worse. I also told him my health should be his priority over any social event anyway. He said that wasn't really giving him a chance because if he stayed, even if I fell asleep right away like I did, I would still hold it against him that he chose wrong. He said he was just enjoying behaving like an adult instead of a dad for one night, and he's allowed to be frustrated that was cut short. It might just be hormones, but his attitude is making me feel guilty about this. You're the jerk. You had heartburn. You weren't in any danger. You ruined his night, and it sounds like you did it out of jealousy and selfishness. You're the jerk. You had heartburn. What exactly would taking care of you entail? I feel sorry for your husband. I can only imagine what his day-to-day life is like living with a princess. You're the jerk. You're a big girl and could have taken the shuttle to the hotel. If you started to feel worse, you could have called him. Seems like this night meant a lot to him and you could care less. Yes, you are pregnant, but it doesn't mean that he is there to be your handmaid. You ruined his night. You're the jerk. Am I the jerk for altering my wedding dress instead of giving it to my sister who can't afford it? I need an unbiased opinion on this because I don't know if I was the jerk or not. So I was supposed to get married 2 months ago to my ex-partner of 5 years. Sadly, we broke it off because he cheated on me during his bachelor party with a dancer. I had this very beautiful dress that cost me around $2,000 out of my own pocket. I had been very depressed since everything happened because I felt it was somehow my fault for not being hot enough or not giving him what he wanted. So last weekend I decided to take my power back and I began altering the dress. I've been sewing for 15 plus years, so I know what I'm doing. I cut it a bit, changed the color to something less wedding-y, and after a week of work, I had a beautiful gown that I could use for more stuff. The problem comes now. I uploaded that picture of the dress to Instagram with a caption that said something along the lines of, "You can change the worst memories," or something like that. My sister hits me up and asks me if that was my old wedding dress, and I told her yes. She then called me and asked me why I had done this. I asked her why it was such a big deal, and she told me that I could have waited till after the wedding. I was so confused. Then she reminded me that when we were staying at the hotel where my wedding was supposed to happen, my mom and sister were there cheering me up, and my sister said something along the lines of, "Oh, well, if you're not using it, I will." We all laughed, so I thought it was a joke because it was never brought up again after that. She just asked me once what material it was, so I assumed she wanted something similar. Now my sister is mad at me, and my mom says she understands our point of views, but that I could have waited 5 more months until after her wedding to take my power back. Am I the jerk? Edit. What is wrong with some of you? Suddenly I'm the jerk for leaving my ex for cheating on me because it doesn't count because it was his bachelor party? Do you know how relationships work? Are you also going to tell me that if he cheated on a Saturday it wouldn't count? Or if he left the country? This is hilarious coming from a sub that says cheaters are the worst people in this world. Cheating is cheating, period. Update. So after being assured that I did nothing wrong, I decided to try to talk it out with my sister. So I tried calling her, but she had blocked my number. I was very confused and talked to my mother. She was trying to stay out of it, and I got a little mad and said that it was not fair. That my sister was not right because she never formally asked me, and how was I supposed to just guess that she wanted it? She tried to justify her, but in the end also accepted that my sister was wrong. Nonetheless, she told me to just give her space and that she will eventually come to terms with it herself. I waited a few days till I met her in the supermarket. At first, she tried to act like she didn't see me, but I planted myself in front of her. She was just rolling her eyes and saying she had places to be, and I just said, "You know, I hope you notice how unfair you're treating me," and then left her alone. That night, I received a call, and she started going off on me for being selfish for about 20 minutes. I asked her if she was done and asked her if we could talk it out like adults. She came over the next night, and we had an exhausting fight, screaming, crying, and after everything was said and done, she actually apologized for everything. She was kind of jealous of my dress and of the wedding I almost had, and she was embarrassed that she couldn't afford everything I could, and that she felt like she failed as an adult and as a mother. And honestly, I get it. Not because I think she's a failure, but because I get how it feels if your brain tells you you failed at life because you don't have things that other people have. She apologized also because she was trying to blame me for her problems and that everything was easier if she wasn't the one to blame. We talked for a lot longer until I told her that she didn't need a fancy dress and that we could search something basic and I could help her decorate it or something. She agreed, and we actually did get to customize a very basic gown. As we didn't have much time, it's not super fancy. Sadly, due to the outbreak, the wedding that was supposed to happen this month was canceled. They had a courthouse wedding where she wore one of my dresses, and she's celebrating in August if it's possible. That's everything. So even if I wasn't the jerk and my sister seemed like a brat, she was dealing with some heavy feelings, and I still love her. Would I be the jerk if I stopped all support to my sister now that she's pregnant with baby number 2? My sister is pregnant again. She's 18, and this will be her second baby. She's very excited and made a cute announcement party for my parents and me. All 3 of us were just giving each other a hard eye contact the entire time. None of us are happy or think this is a good idea. I'm 99% sure it was planned. She's 4 months in already, so it's a bit too late to be talking about alternative options. Obviously, my parents are talking to her about it and the next steps. But for me, I don't think I want to be involved with either of her kids anymore. Teen pregnancies suck, but they do happen. For the first one, I stayed local for college. I didn't move out, so they had the extra support and income. Heck, I was even working extra hours to help support her financially. The first one was a happy little accident, but this second one feels like a massive slap in the face. Mentally, I feel done. I've had enough. They aren't my babies, and they were not my choice. My sister's having a hard time, as she was expecting everything to continue the same, and for us to be a big happy family. My parents have already had a big talk with her and put their foot down, telling her that she needs to sort herself out and contribute a lot more. She's come to me and told me that she thought they would be happy for her and that she doesn't like their attitude. She doesn't even know my opinion yet. I needed some time to collect myself, otherwise I would have thrown a full-on hissy fit at her. But I think I'm going to move out. I want to stop giving her money and giving her my time and energy babysitting and picking up the odd jobs that are involved with a baby in the house. Would I be the jerk if I just stopped? Oh, I'd really love to have another little baby. It'll be cool. My family will provide me with money, babysitting, etc. Yes, time for a reality check for this immature mother-to-be. You've done your bit. Time for her to accept her responsibilities, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your sister feels entitled to your support, which you don't owe her. She got pregnant, not you, and against probably everything else screaming in her face that it's a bad idea. Your parents put their foot down, and now you should as well. What about the baby daddies? What is she doing for a living? What are her plans? What the heck? OP. The first one isn't involved at all. The second one, I doubt he's going to be involved either. They argue a lot and don't seem to actually like each other. I don't want to be mean and describe him, but he is easily deadbeat material who drinks his money away. The original idea with just baby number 1 in the picture was that she focus on school and then goes to a local college after. They have the, I forgot what it's called, just go with it, babysitting room for students. So she would go finish her education and not be completely stuck, get a part-time job, and we will make it work. But that plan's a bit out the window now. I honestly don't know what her plans are now or what she was thinking. The future for her is in limbo right now, and I think that she is messed up in such a way that she won't get out of it. It was actually very kind of you to even have worked extra hours to support her, taking into account that no matter how much of an accident it was the first time, it had nothing to do with you. I'm afraid she took it for granted though. Sounds like her too young brain thought that having a baby is the perfect ticket for getting other support. It isn't. And again, you have nothing to do with this. It's never a must take responsibility for other people's bad choices. Deal with it or find a new job? Easier than you think, bub. As a young adult, I decided to move several hundred miles away on a whim without a new job lined up. Fortunately, the relatives I was living with knew a ton of people in the small town and were able to get me a job within a week at a local grocery store. I was to be a courtesy clerk, bagging groceries and stocking shelves. Immediately, I made friends with coworkers, and some of the customers weren't too bad either. However, management was a different deal. Like the HR manager who would waste a customer's time telling them recipes for the items they have and holding up the line. She would also call me from the back of the store to bag 2 items and help the man barely older than me to his car, despite him protesting. There was also John, the general manager. John would be nice in groups, but if he got you alone, his true colors would show. He once went off on me for having a 5 o'clock shadow, even though I shaved right before work. My hair is dark and grows quickly. Sorry, dude, can't help nature. After a few months, the night janitor, technically early morning, quit. John decided it would now be my job to polish the floors every morning. My previous job was at a movie theater, so working from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. was normal. Mornings, not my jam. This would require me to be at work at 4 a.m., but I was told this would be for 1 to 2 months tops. I was even thrown a sweet 5-cent raise for my troubles. How could I decline? After a month, I asked John how the search for a replacement was going. He says probably 2 weeks and everything will be settled. After month 2, I ask again. John says the first person fell through and suggests that maybe I know someone who might be looking for a job. I assure him that's not the case. After the 3rd month, I was completely over it. Again, I approached John and explained that I can't keep doing this much longer. He replies, "Not my problem. Find someone else or a new job." This ticked me off, but I wasn't in the position to walk out right then. I figured I'd start applying anywhere I could. A couple of days later, possibly even the same day, my relative drags me with them to look at new cars. While discussing prices and waiting for the sales manager to respond, my relative and the salesperson were just BSing, and I mentioned what John had told me about the job. The salesperson raised an eyebrow and walked away. Moments later, the sales manager approached and said they were looking for a detailer and asked if I was interested. It would be a regular schedule, no evenings, and higher than even my previous theater job as a manager. While my relative was signing financing paperwork, I was filling out a new hire packet. I was to begin work on Tuesday of the next week. When I got home, I packed a bag and began driving to my hometown to visit friends. I knew I wouldn't have to work for about a week because at midnight I called the grocery store and told them I would not be returning to work. If you have any questions, please ask John. Epilogue. A year or so after my departure, John was mysteriously no longer working at the store. Nobody knew why, as he had another 5 years before retirement. One day I had to go to the bank to deposit a check, and John was the teller. It was so fun to watch him deposit my paycheck for my new employer. Am I the jerk for telling my sick mom that I will always prioritize my in-laws? My mom has 8 kids. I'm the 4th. She was a bad mom. She always seemed to hate me in particular. I think it's because I look exactly like my dad, who's not in the picture. Another thing that happened when I was 16, our house burned down. We had to move into a family friend's basement. My mom basically told me to get out and go find a place because it's too crowded here, even though she never said that to my 2 older sisters who still lived with her. One was over 18. The next year, my mom got another house and I moved back in. When I turned 18, she told me I had to pay rent. My other siblings were supposed to as well, but she never enforced it with them. My second oldest sister is in her 30s now and still lives at home. She just sits on her phone all day. I never realized how messed up this was until I met my now wife and her parents. And while I know my mom tried her best as a single mom, she never tried her best with me. That's my therapist talking. Now my mom is trying to repair her relationship with me. She has skin cancer. She got it taken out, but the margins were positive or something. She's not passing tomorrow or anything, but she does need more surgery. She invites me for holidays and calls every few months to rant about my other siblings. She called me last week and asked me to come over this weekend. I said I need to ask my wife what day we're going to her parents' house. She said, "Why can't you set a date with me and then go to your wife's parents' house on the other day?" I told her that I will always prioritize my wife's parents, and they and my wife always get to pick the day. She acted all sad. I said, "Sorry, I didn't mean it like that, but we both know I did." Now my younger sister, who is her favorite, is asking me, "How dare you?" She told me mom called her crying. I said mom's an adult who can manage her own feelings, and I'm not responsible for them. She even tried to call and tattle to my wife. Little does she know, if it were up to my wife, we wouldn't talk to any of them. My sister said that upsetting an older sick person can make them take a turn for the worse, and if anything happens to mom, it's on me now, and I need to call her and tell her I love her. My wife says don't worry about it. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You do what you're comfortable with. She wasn't a wonderful mother to you, obviously. She doesn't get a say in what you do as an adult. She wanted you to leave years ago. Cancer is making her realize how she should have done better, but the damage is already done. New neighbor destroyed my vegetable garden on purpose. We moved into our new house in January of this year. There's a side yard of grass and sod that belongs to our property that separates my house from my neighbor's home. Everything seemed great when we moved in, until I planted a small raised vegetable garden in the side yard, only place in the yard with enough sun to grow veggies. The elderly neighbor was unhappy that I had pulled up the grass and said she was going to get my husband on me. My husband loves my garden and the fresh veggies that we get from it daily. Neighbor was quiet for a few months, happily accepted any produce I offered to her. Then out of the blue, she calls code enforcement on my garden, saying it was full of dead plants. Code enforcement came out, saw a garden with no dead plants and tons of melons and peppers and laughed, said that I was not violating code and my garden looked great. Neighbor wasn't happy that code enforcement did not make me remove my garden, so she proceeded to trespass onto my property and mow over all of my watermelon and cantaloupe vines, destroying all of the melons that weren't ripe yet. I approached her and told her not to trespass or mow on my property. She turned away and walked off without saying anything and continued to mow on my property. The next day, I go to throw some trash in the outside bin and I see the neighbor on my property spreading poison on my organic veggie garden. I started filming her, told her to stop, and she continued. That night, both of my dogs got very sick. They were throwing up. They had been in my fenced backyard only, not near the front where I had videotaped her doing what she did. So I called the cops. They came and talked with her, told her she could not come on my property. She screamed and had a fit at me in front of the cop. The neighbor also smiled when I mentioned my dogs getting sick. The cop saw her smile and told me to immediately get cameras put up everywhere as my animals didn't appear to be safe in my yard. I didn't press charges as I just wanted her to stop and leave me alone. However, she is now continuing to trespass on my property. It's all caught on video. She literally walked past the no trespassing sign to mow 4 to 5 feet onto my property. My husband wants to let it go. I fear for my 2-year-old daughter's safety and for the safety of my 2 dogs. She is blatantly disregarding the orders of the police officer. I'm a wreck over all of this. I'm going to have to remove all of the poisoned soil and remediate the ground. All of my other neighbors have been super supportive of my plight and tell me not to back down to her bullying attempts. What should I do? Update. Thank you everyone for the thoughts. I will be going to the police station tomorrow to press charges. Why the heck wouldn't you press charges after all of that? My goodness, that's a no-brainer. She is, as evidenced by your OP, she's obviously not going to stop. I mean, you ought to know that. You've asked her how many times already, and she still blatantly disregards and disrespects your wishes. Apparently, this is a game to her. If her smiling after hearing your dogs got sick in front of a law enforcement officer isn't enough to tell you she's a psycho, then I don't know what will. Press charges and press them hard. Your family is in obvious danger. And build a fence with a locking access gate. Good luck. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you report your neighbor to the police again or not? Please let us know.
I can't even tell you what I'd do to them. Let's just say they'd be making a Lifetime movie about me, and boy would it be good.
Call me a sad, poor person? Well, time to ruin your career. Let me start off by saying that my family is financially stable and have been well off since the days of my great-grandfather. We use the money to fund our charities and put almost all the money we earn back into our business, which is a decently sized attraction ranch that's sort of become a small-town attraction here. We are also not white, but Native American, with my father coming from Mohawk ancestry and my mother coming from the Haida ancestry. We also pay an affordable living wage to all our employees because we value them, and that's how you keep the good employees, and they're like a family to us. Because of this, our family is very well known to the local community. Now, for privacy reasons, I do not use my real name online. I have 2 names, my more traditional native name and my more modern English name. I use my English name online with my mother's maiden name. My brother and I have very strange and very unconventional English names, as we were named after characters from a movie about a boy, a book, a warrior, and a child empress with an impossibly annoying name. We only use these names when needed, so we both use them for online platforms. Let's say that we are Bastion and Artax. I recently got married, and my partner and I decided it was time for us to look at houses. We decided to look at some houses in the area where we lived, and we thought it was time to speak to a financial advisor. After a few days of waiting, I was able to get in touch with a local advisor my father had dealt with over Facebook, whom I have never met but have heard a great deal about, and he told me that he was holding a Facebook Live seminar later that day about mortgaging and property ownership. I had some time, so I decided to sit in on the seminar. To say the seminar was a joke is laughable at best. The man running it was a former athlete who had been dropped by his minor level team due to injury, and his only saving grace was finding work for the bank. This I found out on his LinkedIn profile page, which he had sent a link to at the beginning of the seminar while he spoke about his credentials. He had us sit for half an hour before he decided it was time for all of us to participate and had us react to things. Use the hug reaction if you like this, or the wow reaction if you don't. Use the sad reaction for this, or the thumbs up if that was helpful. Eventually, he asked a question about home ownership. Now, technically, I do own a home already, as I have equal ownership of the house my brother lives in, by his insistence, though I think it was just to boost my credit score when I turned 18, and he began to give examples of houses on the market that those in the seminar would be interested in buying. At the end of each one, he would do the react one again, but this time with the anger react if you don't like it, or the laugh reaction if you did. Well, I saw a house that would have been perfect for my partner and I, so I clicked on the laugh reaction. What came next, I was not prepared for. Instead of continuing on with the seminar, the man running it decided he wanted to vet those who said they wanted the houses he had shown. I honestly have no idea why, but when he came to my name, I guess he clicked on my profile and saw my picture. Now, my picture isn't the worst thing in the world, it's just a picture of me in a silly Halloween wig smiling. I'm a goofy person and all my friends know it. He had judged me based on my profile picture alone. He couldn't see my profile because we aren't friends, yay for privacy settings, and said the following. Why is there always at least one sad poor person with a weird hair color in these seminars? They're for actual people who want to actually buy a house. You can go back to wherever you came from and buy a house with whatever money they used there. Now, what the advisor hadn't known was that I had been recording the seminar through my computer so I could show my partner what had been said. They were out of the house at the time and had asked me to record it for them on my computer and to go through it with them when they came home. To say I was upset by this was a slight understatement. I was mad, not for me, but for others this guy had probably treated this way. He had based a decision solely on the way I looked, without knowing me, my financial background, or anything else about me. How many others had he done this to? Then a thought came across my mind. This is a man who had dealings with my father, his friends, and their friends, all of which had their investments in the bank that he worked in. Now, I wasn't a member of said bank, but I had been planning on using them when the time came for buying a house. I wanted to get back at this guy who had treated me so poorly, and I wasn't even a customer. Now, it was time for the pro-revenge. I started off by calling my parents, both of whom have sizable investments in the bank as well as business accounts with them. I told them what had happened and sent them the recorded video where you could clearly see my profile in the shot and what he had said. I swear, I saw my father turn as bright as a red LED light, and my mother tried to calm him down, as she usually does, but I knew it was no use. My father left to call his friends, while my mother made sure I was all right. I am. See, my parents were one of the two big accounts at the bank where this advisor worked. The other belonged to one of my dad's longtime friends and the father of one of my best friends. I told my parents that I just wanted to make sure that they hadn't been treated like I had been, since my mom often dyes her hair crazy colors when we do fundraising at the ranch, and my dad has had to give himself an undercut for a few years due to needing surgery, and he has hair longer than I do. I wouldn't know the repercussions of this one phone call until the next day, when my dad showed up at my current residence and told me he was taking me out for the day with his buddy. I said I'd go with them because you do not say no to two giant 6'10" native dudes who handle horses day in and day out and are built like brick houses. I got into the truck and we drove into town. We arrived at the bank after a quick stop to Starbucks and the three of us entered. My father and his friend were immediately greeted by the greeter at said branch, and the first thing my father's friend says is that he wants to meet with the branch manager ASAP. My father says the same, and the three of us wait as she gets the manager on the phone. The bank manager, who I have met before, greets the three of us. My father tells me to wait in the lobby, and I watch as they disappear into the manager's office. Now, what I'll tell you next are the words that came straight from my father's mouth. As the three of them sat in the manager's office, both my father and his friend say that they're going to close all of their accounts, effective immediately. All the stocks, investments, business accounts, everything will be closed by the time they leave the office. The branch manager is stunned and asks why, to which my father pulls out his phone, and he plays the video I had sent him to said manager. My father says the manager looked as white as snow when he saw it, and immediately I could hear this from the lobby, yelled out for said financial advisor to, and I quote, "Get in the office right now." That's when I saw the advisor who had belittled me online run into the office. The manager asked the advisor to explain himself, to which the advisor tried to play it off as a joke. My father and his friend told him they had the entire recording of the seminar and that no, he wasn't joking, and they were now pulling all their accounts out of said bank. The advisor, now seeing he had been cornered, practically started begging them to stay, saying that he will apologize to me and that it was all taken out of context. My father looked to his friend, who then said, "Sounds like something a sad poor person would say." He then made sure his accounts were closed and everything was set before he left the office. My father did the same as the advisor began to tremble. Before he left the office, however, my father extended a hand to the advisor and said, "I think you might have forgotten who I am. I'm Dad's full name, father of Artax, Mom's last name." We left, and a few weeks later, I saw the same advisor as I was walking into town, behind the cash register at the Starbucks. I believe he saw me when I walked in, because he suddenly had something to do in the back room and didn't leave until I left the store.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.